Good evening. Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019, please come to order? For the benefit of those who may not have participated in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. 1, the Secretary will read the legal call of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. 2, the applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. 3, there will then be the opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. First, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and second, those who oppose the application will then be invited to come forward. As this is a public hearing, it must be recorded. It is necessary for speakers to identify themselves, state their name and address before addressing the commission. 4, the applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and regular meeting, at which time the commission will try and reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has the right to appeal to a superior court if desired. 5, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office, 453-8039, after 9 a.m. Seated this evening are the following members: Sean Cosgrove, Matt Yerzinski, Richard Wallace. I'm Phil Johnson. Alan Brown, Scott Edmonds, Jamie Stein. Our town staff this evening is George Kroll, the town planner, Aaron Mannix, zoning enforcement, Kevin McGee, environmental planner. Our recording secretary is Lisa Piombino. The videographer this evening is Peter Schultz. The secretary will now read the legal notice.
Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on October 2nd, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at location Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, Monunketuck Room, 2nd floor, for the following purposes. Richard and Eileen Petrillo, 68 Trolley Road, Map 8, Lot 63A, Zone R2, Coastal Site Plan for new single-family residence. Benton's Knoll, LLC, 215 Colonial Road / Old Sachem's Head Road, Map 8, Lot 24, Zone R5, special permit request for modification to approved planned residential development to increase septic capacity and allow for a total of 43 bedrooms. 33 bedrooms previously approved. John Saunders, 73 Meadow Street, Map 32, Lot 85, Zone R6, special permit and coastal site plan for remediation of approximately 1.720 square feet of tidal wetlands due to an unauthorized filling. Copies of these applications are available for inspection at the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communication will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 9th day of September 2019. Phil Johnson, Chairman.
Very good. First item this evening is Vigliotti Construction, Long Hill Road, subdivision, Long Hill Estates West, map 96, lots 1, 2A, and 1D, zone R5, special permit application for 31 lot open space subdivision, continued from 9/2019.
Good evening. Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant Vigliotti Construction. With me tonight is Tim Shields, the attorney of record. Okay, this parcel consists of 76.8 acres, and it's in an R5 zone, and it's located just north of the Baldwin Middle School and south of Spruce Hill Lane on the east side of Long Hill and west of the West River. We're here tonight for a special permit to go forward with an open space subdivision consisting of 31 residential lots, public water, and a 1,300 linear foot public road. We're also proposing to deed to the town of Guilford 53.4 acres, which is about 69.5% open space of the total site. The plans before you, while containing quite a bit of detailed information, are still conceptual. The inland wetlands have been mapped and the boundary has been approved by the Guilford Inland Wetlands. In addition to boundary approval, Wetlands has also approved this plan and concept for the open space. We've done extensive soil testing with the health department and all 31 lots have suitable soils for septic systems. Under Article 27, open space subdivisions, per section 273, 213, the purpose is to provide a flexible method of development and encourage permanent open space protection to minimize land disturbance. Section 273-217, criteria for approval. This plan demonstrates 6 of the 7 elements of this section. And I do have some handouts for you guys to look at. Give you a kind of an overview. It's a 400 scale. What I did was I took the off the Guilford GIS and I superimposed the subdivision just so you get a sense of the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you.
And if there are any questions, I did give a presentation last time. Members of the public were here. I did have Erin's comments. Most of them have been addressed, the ones that I felt that needed to be addressed at this stage of the application. And as I said, I will entertain any questions that you have.
Just refreshing my memory, it's total 53.4 acres deeded to open space.
That is correct. There's about a 1,300-foot boundary with the middle school. Direct access.
In conversation earlier, city water to these?
Yes, public water is being worked on as we speak.
What is the purple shading on the map?
This? That's the wetlands boundary. We've been criticized for using blue because it looks like an ocean or a large lake. Actually, it's just a wooded area that has wetlands in it. But there's actually one pond area that is right in it.
You said the vernal pond that was mentioned?
We did a location. I spoke to Bob Russo, the soil scientist, and we did locate, there is one vernal pool that is contained within the open space area. One of the concerns with vernal pools, stormwater management, they recommend a 750-foot buffer to any detention basins. In speaking with the environmental analyst, Bob Russo, he said the reason people are concerned about detention basins near vernal pools, it sets up a decoy pool for the vernal creatures, the obligate species that are there. So what we are intending to doing is any detention basin, if we do have one within the 750 foot, we're going to make sure it does not become a decoy vernal pool by making sure it drains.
It drains.
It wouldn't lend itself for obligate species to breed there.
Quick question. There was a memorandum from Erin from September 18th. Do you recall if we read that into the record or not?
I don't believe we met on our last meeting for the 18th. This item was continued.
Okay.
I can submit it as part of the record.
There is a memorandum from Zoning Enforcement Officer Aaron Mannix. I'd like to have it read into the record. Do you have a copy of
I
it?
have a copy and I'm willing to address these comments.
Okay. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I can just do that instead of reading.
Terrific.
Okay, so this is September 18th, 2019, Planning and Zoning from Aaron Mannix, Vigliotti subdivision. General conformance to subdivision, please see comments below. I'm just going to read the ones in the asterisks. Is that fair, Eric? Are those the ones, the comments that need to be addressed?
In that
I mean, italics.
Sure.
Okay. So the map provided, the boundary map of the property shall meet the standards of an A2 survey. The map provided shows parcels not included in the proposed open space subdivision. In this map, we do call out in red text, not included in the subdivision, instead of having these blank open spots, because we still needed the geometry around the parcels that are contained within the subdivision. So they are called out as individual, not part of the subdivision. It's very clear. Please note the applicant has added in one location a drainage pool, and she's talking about 750 feet, which I talked about earlier. Adjacent open space has not been identified in the plans. Well, there is no adjacent open space. The only property is the town property, which is adjacent, and there is a large parcel to the north, but I think It's 35 acres or so, and I think 34 of it is in farmland preservation land. So I don't know if that really counts as being open space, but it's still private property. There is no access to it. The extent of field testing has not been met and should be required as a condition of approval. I spoke with Dennis Johnson about that, standard subdivision procedures. You do, for soil testing for septic systems, is 2 in the primary, 1 in the reserve, and the perk tests. We did over 130 test pits. So to expedite things a little bit more, what we did was Dennis felt the testing that we did was adequate, and if required, if this goes forward, if required by the health department, we will go ahead and do additional soil testing. Every lot will have an engineered septic system. At that time, we didn't feel, Dennis did not feel it was necessary to do the extended testing. And actually, the open space regulations themselves probably need to be rewritten. This has never been done before in this town of Guilford. I think this is kind of like growing pains, and I think the commission really should adhere to one of the sections of the open space subdivision and allow some flexibility. Otherwise, there's really, if you're going to be stringent and make us adhere to certain elements of conventional subdivision, I don't see the point of even having an open space subdivision. Existing drainage patterns have not been identified. On this sheet, we did identify, there's a, let's see, there is a red line here, and it says drainage shed typical, so each drainage shed is broken out on this map, and we do have the drainage report that we had handed to Janice. It needs some more work, but at this stage of conceptual plans, we felt this was adequate. Let's see, that's minimum lot frontage of 80 foot, should be shown clearly. We did provide a curve table with numbers. If you look at the cul-de-sac, you'll see C4, C1, C2, standard mapping procedures. You can't get all that geometry in that little space. So we do come out with a curve table in the upper left hand that gives the length, the radius, and the delta of each section of that curve, and you add those up, and that gives you your lot frontage. None of the lot frontages are under 25 feet. Most of them are 80 plus. There are some rear lots, and that's part of the what we're going to be requesting from the commission to give us some latitude on the amount of rear lots. Let's see. Lot lines and shapes. I mean, we get into panhandles. Again, this can be addressed, and I believe that with the open space regulations, there's enough flexibility to go ahead and allow us to go ahead and do these different lot configurations. Bulk standards, I provided that to Erin today. She had copies she may have handed out to you. They mimic the R5, R3 zone as closely as I can. I really didn't go below projections. I try to adhere to most of the common open space, the bulk standards on the subdivision regulations and zoning regulations as much as I could, and still allowing us to preserve as much land as possible. I know everyone wants to, that was the intent of this whole thing, is to protect important natural resources, protect scenic resources, protect important natural resources. Actually, 1, 2, 3, we probably meet 6 of the 7 elements of the last part of this letter. The only thing we don't preserve areas along town or state roads that will protect rural appearance, but some of these lots the houses are set back far enough, and Long Hill Road in that area doesn't appear to be a scenic road in there. And that, I'm sorry?
It's not designated.
It's not designated scenic, yeah, correct. Doesn't look very scenic. Yeah.
Excuse me, Chuck, one question. How many interior lots are you requesting?
I believe
part
it
of
is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to call a lot 25 foot frontage interior.
If they lack
Or is that a rear
sufficient,
lot
if they...
interior? Rear
if they're-
equals interior?
Correct.
Okay.
We don't have a definition for rear.
Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe there are 8 rear lots. That was another regulation. You can't have more than 21 lots on a cul-de-sac. So that was the reason we had some of these weird, like Lot 24, we didn't give it any frontage on the proposed road because we weren't allowed to exceed the amount. I mean, it doesn't really look great, and we'd probably provide an easement over there, a driveway easement, but the lot configuration itself, actually, we had to cut this Lot 24 completely off the subdivision to meet that arbitrary criteria for 21 lots. Technically, it fronts both roads.
I can't remember if you discussed the question of the lots on Long Hill Road, how they affect community character at the first public hearing. Did you address that?
I did,
or
and actually, I
not?
have another handout since you were asking that question. I didn't make 100 copies of it, but actually on the handouts that I showed you, if you look at the overlay, and then you look at, okay, this is a 800 scale representation. You might have to pass this around. I didn't make enough copies, but you can see to the southwest, the cluster of subdivisions. It starts alpha, beta, gamma. I mean, all those lots, I don't think we're really changing the character of that road by having some of these reduced size lots. I mean, from an R5, it doesn't meet that, but it certainly meets most of the R3 criteria, which is directly across the street, and then you can pass this. I didn't even know you could use it. So you can pass that, and this is our subdivision, and the orange is R3, and the green is R5. So we're directly across the street from R3.
Is everything across the street, R3? The Oakwood, Kimberly Drive, all those?
No, that's a different zone, because I think that's the color. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, I
The
see.
orange is
I was-
orange is R3, and that's right from
Yeah,
your
okay.
GIS.
Right, right. Yeah, that's
So you can just pass that around.
It's dense, gamma and alpha and all that stuff.
How come the lot shapes are not exactly the same on this map compared to that map?
This is a brand-new plan. I didn't have time to overlay it, but they're similar. I mean, there are some differences. Aaron has copies of those plans.
So which one is it going to be?
This one.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll have copies of that also to look at. If you decide to close the public hearing, and then you can look at these plans and get a better sense. Yeah.
Dated revised September 11th, 2019.
Yeah, 9/11/19.
There's a letter here from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health. I'll read it into the record. It's
Okay.
dated October 2nd, Vigliotti Construction. In February and March 2019, soil testing was conducted on the applicant's proposed subdivision for the purpose of determining suitability for installation of on-site septic systems on 31 building lots. Soil test results revealed moderately permeable soils with conditions of special concern, including elevated seasonal water table and shallow bedrock. Based upon the soil test results and site plan review, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed subdivision be approved with the following conditions. All plans for new septic systems shall be prepared by a professional registered engineer. 2, at the time of design, additional soil and percolation tests shall be performed in both the primary and septic reserve areas to confirm compliance with design and subdivision standards. 3, public water supply shall be extended to serve all homes in the subdivision. Do you have a copy of those?
I do.
Okay.
I read that. Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Town engineer brought up a few concerns last time. Where are we with this?
We resubmitted a report to her, and there is another letter that she sent. And Aaron, do you have a copy of that letter? It was like a one-paragraph.
You have that in your packet.
Yeah, September 17th.
September
Do you have a copy of that
17th.
letter? The new one?
Right, you did- you
Can
have-
you read that into the record?
You haven't read that yet. That's all.
So this is from Janice Blasiak, Town Engineer,
At the last meeting.
September 17, 2019, regarding Vigliotti Construction. I have reviewed the revised documents received since my last memo dated August 21st, 2019 for the above referenced project. It appears that most of my concerns, 1 through 9, have not been addressed. While a revised drainage report has been submitted with some changes to the drainage system on the plans, I will not comment on these at this time, as this is best left for comment at the next stage of regulatory application and review. Do we have a copy of per 1 through 9 concerns that were not addressed?
We do. But I think what she's saying is, let's address these at the time of the final subdivision.
If I can address the Commissioner's concern, that is true, 1 through 9. The information she requests is very costly to perform of these analyses, and I felt it was an unfair burden to my client to go ahead and do this based on this preliminary review, and all these comments can be addressed. There were no showstoppers in her comments.
And again, just for the benefit of people here, this is to grant a special permit so they can bring this application to the next stage. We're not approving this subdivision, it's just, we're approving it being moved to the next stage of the process.
To obtain ability to get the special permit.
Correct.
Is my understanding.
Did I get that right?
Finally.
I know I made you do this the last time we had this,
Process.
but could you actually describe for everyone the
Our hope
process?
is that you'll be able to conclude the public hearing tonight. And next meeting, hopefully, with the assistance of Town Council, Chuck Andrus, will draft a motion of approval for the special permit, which will include all the conditions that need to be met related to the final subdivision application. Assuming that you approve the special permit with all those conditions, with the proper documentation that will work with Chuck Andrus to create, then the applicant, should they choose to, will file the special permit application in the land records, and that will enable them to make a final subdivision application, which then hopefully they will do. And at that point, these detailed studies will have to be completed in order for you to make a final decision on the subdivision plan before any lots can be developed or conveyed.
Thank you. And based on town staff concerns, we did decide to lawyer up, and Kimberly is here tonight, just in case.
So, the majority of the town staff's concerns are based off of the bulk standards for a typical subdivision, correct? And so, my question, and Erin in her memo actually asks that they provide in writing proposed bulk standards for these open space subdivisions.
Submitted
That is
today.
something that was submitted
Yes.
today.
That, yep. Do you have a copy of that?
So we'll review
So
that.
that would be the way for the town staff to know how to regulate this.
Exactly. Here's a copy of that.
We'll review that before you,
Yes.
before you make a decision, to make sure that that's appropriate. If there are any revisions to that that we think are required, we'll suggest those to you at the time you make the subdivision, the special permit decision, assuming that these are all adequate, these are all okay. That'll become part of the special permit, and then the final subdivision plan will have to conform to them. That'll be the minimum standard at least.
And just be aware that those bulk standards were derived by garnering all the different bulk standards from different zones, but open space is a unique zone in itself. So in regards to the 15-foot side yards, open space would allow something like that.
The important thing, or one of the important aspects of this, which will hopefully enable us to do a better job in the future, will relate to people down the road, new owners of property, looking to make improvements to their property, additions and renovations subsequent to this actual approval, and it'll be quite clear in the land records and our other documentation what the bulk standard rules are, so that a homeowner 5 years from now wants to put an addition on their home, it'll be quite clear what the rules are, because we won't be able to just rely on the R5 standards, which would be the typical way of doing it, because we have, in effect, created a special zone with special standards. So that'll be documented as part of the special permit approval.
Because some of these numbers don't even conform with R3, so it
Right.
is very special.
Right.
But in the open space subdivision,
Understood.
yeah.
Any other clarifying questions from commissioners? Would anyone? Sorry.
Just to put a finer point on the great explanation that George gave us. I know the last meeting, you had talked about areas of flexibility that you wanted sort of the commission to take into account. I just want to be clear, so, the number of rear lots, the frontage for those rear lots, the number of lots that can
Lot
be
shapes.
around, yeah, all of these things, are we putting them on paper this evening and voting, or is that the future? Okay.
This, for example, if this is approved as part of the special permit, then that will put that in the record But there'll still be flexibility in terms of the final design. Just like the number of lots will set the maximum. There cannot be any more than 31 lots if that's what's approved. They could come back with a plan that had 29 lots or any other number other than 31. So this sort of sets the maximum boundaries of what can be shown and developed as part of the final subdivision. That's the way this will work.
I believe that based on the land area, the open space, that we could actually go for 41 lots. The reason we chose 31 lots was we try to condense and consolidate and use the best soils that were possible. So the 31 lots, I mean, even though it is flexible, but we are really looking for the 31 lots. Otherwise, it's not even economically feasible.
We go below 31.
Right, 31. And so, and most of these lot lines, it's really based on soils, where we can get the best septic areas. So that's kind of dictated the shape of some of these lots, and that's why you have some irregular lots.
Part of our looking at this application, Aaron, you mentioned the 7 points that we're supposed to look at in terms of community benefit. Could we just go through them quickly for the folks in the room to kind of see? So like for protect important natural resources, can you just point that out real quick?
Well, the entire West River is going to be protected. That's a very valuable resource. In addition, there are various trails that are in here. There's a large open space area. There's a vernal pool that we're going to protect. So there is quite a large area to protect.
Protect scenic resources is similar to that?
Yes, yes.
Contribute an overall open space system for the neighborhood or town that will not result in small or fragmented open space parcels?
Right, well, this is over almost 52 acres of open space, and it is actually adjacent to the school property, actually town property.
You mentioned that you're not necessarily preserving areas along town or state roads that will
No.
protect the rural appearance. Item E, contribute to establishment of open space corridor or greenway or interconnection of existing open spaces.
Well, it's a start, I mean, because there is a property to the north, 35 acres, that's in farmland. So I can't predict the future, but it may actually end up as open space at some point.
Provide for public access, certainly that's the
There is
point.
public access.
And provide for potential recreation areas, which is also
That's
pretty
We're not sure. Wetlands was talking about different classes of open space. There's Class A and Class B. They would like to see Class A, which means, I mean, I guess you could walk on it, but they don't want rec fields or anything like that. But we are preserving it.
Yeah, the definition of recreation areas could be,
Passive recreation,
Correct.
walking.
all right, thank you.
Are there any clarifying questions from the audience? Would anyone like to speak in favor of this application? Would anyone like to speak against this application? With no further comment? All in favor? Thank you. Oh, well, I mean,
All right, never mind. I'll leave it.
I think you did a great job.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I know. He can't bill you now.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Next item, Richard and Eileen Petrillo, 68 Charlie Road, map 8, lot 63A, zone R2, coastal site plan for new single-family residence.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm attorney Marjorie Shansky. I represent Rich and Eileen Petrillo for this property at 68 Charlie Road. With me this evening are Mark Young and Dirk Goss from Waldo and Associates. Philippe Campus is the development architect. I have a letter for the commission. Who gets the original?
No, you can't go that way.
And then copies for all. And the letter is a summary, in effect, of the law governing coastal site plan review, which, as you well know, is a single process that looks both at zoning conformity and at consistency with coastal policies and goals. The coastal site plan application that was provided to the commission has detailed narratives about the coastal resources on and adjacent to the site, and Mark will be discussing that as he walks through the site plan with you. And I have extracted the zoning chart from the site plan on page 2 of my letter, and that demonstrates zoning consistency. The beauty of this project, or among the lovely elements of this project, It started at the Zoning Board of Appeals with a different plan, and frankly, it was before my arrival. And it was not approved at that time. There was a non-conforming house. The letter that you have in the file, and there are actually 2.5 to 3 emails from Carol Szymanski at DEEP, initially were issued, or the initial one came out during the Zoning Board of Appeals process. And you will see in that letter that no small amount of time is spent discussing hardship and scale. All of those issues have been alleviated because the development before the commission this evening is zoning conforming. So in that respect, it accomplishes some salutary goals that are found in Connecticut law, which is the elimination of nonconformity to conformity as quickly as the equities permit. Of course, it's an undersized lot. It's a recognized undersized lot. It's permitted to have a single-family home on it. But now it will be a conforming single-family home. And it will have an upgraded septic system, which is a feature that is protective of water quality. And during demolition and construction, best management practices in soil erosion and sediment control will be measures that are protective of coastal resources.
Can I ask a question? What was the non-conformity before that is being now alleviated?
The placement of the house.
Okay.
For
So
the record-
setback?
Okay, the existing house is shown in a faint line, let's see, which would be right here, and it was 5.7 or 6.7 feet from this sideline, the existing house. So it was non-conforming as to that setback, and let's see, I believe, let's see, on that would be the zoning chart, sideline.
If you look at the zoning chart on page 2 of my letter, you can follow it across to see what the existing attributes are and what the proposed attributes are.
Yeah, so it was non-conforming with respect to the sideline, and that was primarily.
So I want to say simply, in reference again to the Carol Szymanski comment from the DEEP, there was an initial response filed over the letterhead of Waldo and Associates, and then there's a consolidated response letter dated September 19th that is in your file. And all of the observations and comments of Ms. Szymanski have been either eliminated, the things about which she had concern that related primarily to hardship and the request for zoning relief, and certain elements about the coastal, although she primarily talked about zoning, interestingly. With that, I would give you Mr. Young, and then if there's anything to summarize or any comments from the public to respond to, I would come back then.
Thank you, Attorney Szymanski. For the record, I'm Mark Young. I'm a land surveyor with Waldo Associates, representing the owners of the property, Richard and Eileen Petrillo. To start at the beginning, as Attorney Szymanski pointed out, we're seeking custodial management approval for this project, which involves removal of the existing non-conforming house and construction of a new house conforming to all area and bulk standards, and construction of a new leaching system which will be code compliant. The existing house this is a one-bedroom cottage, 714 square feet, plus a substantial deck. The new house is 913 square foot footprint, about 1,700 square feet of living space on 2 floors. As I mentioned, the house is conforming to all sidelines, street line setback, rear line setback, and floor area and coverage are conforming. In fact, I believe the coverage actually goes down slightly because there's a large deck which will not be replaced. The septic system has been designed using a modern state-of-the-art system. It's been reviewed and approved by the health department. Soil tests indicate suitable soils. Stormwater management will be handled by infiltration trenches along each side of the house. These are 3-foot wide by 1-foot deep trenches filled with stone. The roof will have no gutters, so the rainwater will drip off the edges and into the trenches and infiltrate into the ground. We have a couple of soil tests in that area which indicate a lot of broken rock, so it would be very permeable soils, and it will promote infiltration of the rainwater. The house is built on a slab, so there's no issue with the water and the foundation. During construction, we're proposing a silt fence around the site to contain any runoff. Demolition debris from the house will be baled in directly into dumpsters to be trucked off-site, so that won't be an issue. The coastal resources we're considering on this site include beaches, rocky shorefronts, near-shore waters, and flood zones. Offshore, we have the shellfish concentrations, and again, near-shore water. These erosion control measures will prevent, any siltation, any runoff which could possibly harm the shellfish. Now, yes, this is a larger house. It's a 2-story house replacing a single-story house. We think it will actually fit in well with the neighborhood. Up and down the street, there are mostly 2- and 3-floor houses, and many of these houses have been rebuilt in the past 20, 30 years. So I think this house will enhance the neighborhood. It will fit in well. And of course, it will be an asset to the town's tax base. We have designated a view lane down the driveway area. This will be greater than the 8-foot minimum required, and so passers-by will be able to look down the side and view the ocean. We think overall this will be an asset to the neighborhood. Our erosion control, septic system, and stormwater treatments will prevent any negative effect on the coastal resources.
Good evening. My name is Philippe Campus. I'm an architect practicing in Brantford, and I'm the designer for the Cathedral House. Before I start, I'd like to introduce for the record a copy of the most current floor plan to make sure it's good condition. In fact, I'd like to also hand out a few blow-ups of the house plans themselves, because I don't know when the documents are filed with the commission members get everything, and sometimes when they reduce, they become totally unreadable. So by doing this, you'll be able to follow what the documents are. There's 5 copies, and after my presentation, I'd like to. This is the same exact drawings that are in the application that I just had. So this is a 1-bedroom house, and not only is it fully zoning compliant, it's also a safer house than what is there now. It's essentially pulled back from the flood zone known as the AE11 zone, which is between this blue line here and the blue line in front, so that the entire building is in the safest area of the lot. So it was a conscious decision between me and my client to make the house smaller in order to make it safer. We could, by zoning, have been fully complying and be in the flood zone as well. But it was a lot safer for now and for the future to make the house smaller in order to avoid that. So the current house, by FEMA regulation, is actually encroaching on the AE zone, and this house will not. Even though it's not in the AE zone, it will still maintain a high floor elevation, so come what may in the future, the house will be substantially above the minimum required by the Connecticut Code for building in flood zones. And it's another reason why the house does not have a basement or does not have a crawl space, because those are two areas that become problems as flood water rise, because they become water storage and create some serious issues. Another challenge was that the existing house is a one-bedroom house, and because it's a non-conforming situation in terms of septic system, it's a repair, not a fully complying multi-bedroom septic design. The town requirement was to maintain a one-bedroom design. And so a big question has always been, what is one bedroom? How do you define a bedroom? And the regulation, and after several discussions with Dennis Johnson, he came to agree that the design you see in front of you is a conforming one-bedroom design, because to have a qualifying bedroom, you have to have access to a public means of egress. A public means of egress is a hallway, a stairway, some form of connection between the room itself and the exterior. And so even though if you look on the second floor plan, there is a room inside the area. The bedroom is the room that is the first you enter coming from the hallway. But if you continue down the same hallway, there is a secondary room called a study. And that is not a legal one bedroom, because you cannot get into the study without getting into the bedroom. So in fact, you could have another 15 rooms strung along behind the one bedroom, as long as, and we purposely put rooms that could not be converted so you could cross them at a later time and go to the hallway. That's why the mechanicals are in front of that space, because there is no way to create a hallway at any time to make that a one bedroom at another time. So it will never be possible to become a two bedroom because of that. So that was an important aspect. The other thing is that the reason for the change for building the new house is the existing house predates World War II. We don't have an exact construction date because at the time the records were very sloppy, if there were any, but it's most likely built before the crash of 1929, because the building is clearly a system of construction, and it's one of three buildings. This building, the building at 74 Trolley Road, and the building at 82 were all on one parcel, actually originally in the 30s. They were owned by Parker Robinson, who owned the property until the 60s. And they were all built at the same time as an income-producing vacation rental in the 30s. And obviously nobody was making investment properties during the crash of the 29 and the early 30s. So the building will be built of material that will integrate with the neighborhood in terms of siding and shapes. It's a traditional gable roof. And even though it's much larger than what's there now, it will still be one of the very smallest buildings in the entire street, because it will top out at 1,753 square feet total floor area, including the outside walls. And if you look around Trolley Beach Road now, it is definitely, Trolley Road is definitely not a street with small houses under 2,000 square feet. The majority of the houses are more like 3,000 square feet and above. And so, in a few words, that's the house we're proposing. It's a compact car in a world of SUV.
You're really close to the AE floodline.
We are very close.
Haven't been the subject of a FEMA remapping on a house.
Yes.
Has this area been remapped, and are you concerned about that? I mean, obviously,
No.
if it's compliant now, but if it got remapped in the future and you wanted to do substantial improvement, that would be...
We can't predict what FEMA will do in the future.
That's true.
And we're in a state where FEMA is diligent at bringing up to date their maps after every serious flood event. After Irene and Sandy, they reissued their maps in 2013, and they significantly raise the requirements. It doesn't happen the same way in all states. Florida used maps in 2005, for example. So yes, it's likely it will continue that way in Connecticut, but at that point, nobody should build close to the water. That's true for everybody on the street.
Just wanted, you're aware of it. But.
Well, we're aware of it, and that's why we maintain a high floor elevation, because even if we were in the AE zone, we would still be complying, and even in the VE zone, we will be complying. So this house will be safe for a long time to come.
There is a letter from Dennis Johnson, the Director of Health. Matt, you want to grab that one?
Sure. I need to find it first. This is to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated October 2nd, 2019. The subject is Petrillo, Richard, and Eileen, 68 Charlie Road, map 8, lot 63A. The applicant's proposed rebuild of a single-family residence will result in an increase in habitable floor area, but will maintain the previous one-bedroom design capacity existing structure. The proposed second-floor room layout depicts only a one-bedroom suite configuration, since only one common path of private entry is available to the bedroom. Soil tests conducted in the area of the septic system revealed suitable conditions for installation of a new one-bedroom septic system. It is recommended that the applicant's proposed house design and site plan dated October 1st, 2019 by Waldo and Associates be approved with the following condition. The septic system serving the proposed dwelling shall be installed and approved by the Guilford Health Department prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Great. There is also a letter from our environmental planner, Kevin McGee. As Kevin is here, would you like to take your own letter and bring it
Sure,
forward?
I can read it for you guys.
Thanks.
This is a coastal area management plan review for Richard and Ellen Petrillo, 68 Charlie Road, Guilford. The information provided indicates that the existing house is being torn down and replaced with a slightly larger new house with a new septic system. The stormwater management system consists of roof water discharging into a stone infiltration trench located under the roof eaves. The property is located in a FEMA zone VE elevation 12, AE elevation 11, flood zone, and flood zone X. The coastal resource policy is applicable for the property or coastal hazard area, beach, rocky shorefront, coastal waters, intertidal flats, shellfish concentration areas. The site plan provides for erosion and sediment control measures that designed to protect the adjacent coastal resources. The work being conducted could have an impact on the adjacent coastal resources if the erosion and sedimentation controls are not maintained properly or installed properly. In order to make sure that the coastal resources are protected, I recommend the following conditions of approval. One, the town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any demolition or site construction. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fence or hay bales. Soil erosion and sedimentation control measures should be maintained until vegetation is established or a suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. The site should be inspected daily to make sure that all construction debris have been properly disposed of into a covered dumpster. The site should be updated. The site plan should be updated to indicate the north side yard setback is designated as a view lane in accordance to the zoning code 273-91J view standards. Right now it says possible viewway, so it needs to be kind of more permanent on the plan.
Are you okay with those?
Yes.
Great. Any questions from commissioners? I mean, I'll throw it back to town staff. While I fully trust everything that's presented, are we fully compliant on all of our regulations with respect to the construction? Setbacks, heights, within the zone? Bulk
Yes.
standards?
Just to bring to your attention also, there's a letter in the record from Deborah and Gare from Six Waterside.
We'll read that in.
To submit.
Come letters of
Public
support.
comments.
go from there. Any clarifying questions from commissioners?
What is the elevation of the first floor? You mentioned a height.
13.4. And the flood elevation is 11.
Are there any clarifying questions from the audience? Attorney Beatty, please step forward. Name and address for the record, please.
Jeffrey Beatty, 705 Boston Post Road. I'm here on behalf of Jonathan and Nancy Bishop, 64 Trolley Road. Just two quick questions. I want to thank Mr. Goss for dropping off a set of the revised plans in my office this morning. I really appreciate it. And Attorney Shansky and I had an opportunity to discuss this, so these questions will not come as a surprise, I hope, to you. There was a staircase that was added to the revision, to the updated revision, and I didn't know if that impacted the coverage requirements. It's a staircase on the water side of the property, coming off the, I guess it would be the northwest corner of the house. And then there was also a revision that added a figure on this, on the southeast corner towards my client's property, and I just wasn't sure what those two items were. I know the staircase, but I didn't know if that impacted the coverage
Okay.
substantially to.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the staircase in the back was added after the zoning chart was finalized. It does increase the coverage from 12.3 to 12.7%. Okay. So we're still conforming. And the other two landings on the south side and the east side, those are just single steps, so they don't count. They're in the projection, allowed projection, so they don't count for coverage.
Okay, great. That was it.
Thank you for your clarifying question. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Would anyone like to speak? Before we do that, there's a letter from Gil and Deborah Gare, which I'll read. To whom it may concern, we are very pleased with knowing the property owned by Richard and Eileen Petrillo is going to be upgraded and renovated. We have seen the drawings as to the work that they plan and feel it is a betterment to their home in the neighborhood. Our home is just doors away from this property, and we have no objections to it at all. Sincerely, Gills and Deborah Gare. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this application? Would anyone like to speak against the application? Wow, okay. Would someone like to make a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Hold on. Do we need a motion on that? On the patrol? Okay. All right, so it's closed. We'll move on to the next item, which is Benton's Knoll LLC, which I think a couple of people might be here for. 215 Colonial Road / Old Sachem's Head Road, map 8, lot 24, zone R5, special permit request for modification to approved planned residential development to increase the septic capacity and allow for a total of 43 bedrooms, 33 bedrooms previously approved.
Good evening. My name is Russ Smith. I'm the developer of Benton's Knoll and the owner of Benton's Knoll LLC. My offices are located in Old Lyme, Connecticut. With me tonight is Attorney Gail McTaggart of Secor, Cassidy, McPartland of Waterbury. Gail assisted and represented Benton's Knoll LLC in its original application and approvals for the Benton's Knoll project. We are here tonight to ask for a modification to our previous PRD approvals to allow for additional bedrooms for the remaining 5 units to be built at Benton's Knoll. Since our approvals, we have built 9 homes. The 9th home is about to be delivered next week. In the past 90 days or so, I became aware of the fact that the state of Connecticut modified their sanitary regulations to allow an increase of discharge for septic systems. When we originally applied for this application, we were limited to 33 bedrooms under the 5,000 gallons per day. The new regulation has gone to 7,500 gallons per day, which allows us to be able to have additional bedrooms based upon that. We have 5 remaining units left. We were approved for 33 bedrooms. Our application actually asks for 10 additional bedrooms, but since then, with communication with Dennis Johnson, the sanitarian, and our engineers, we've resolved that 7 bedrooms additionally would be actually what we'd be requesting tonight as a modification to this application. I have had conversations with the town planner and Department of Health prior to the submission of this application. Conceptually, both understood, and the town planner confirmed the necessity for a modification to the initial approvals, and the sanitarian did suggest preliminary concept investigation for the feasibility of the bedroom increase. We have had our engineer do the preliminary investigation requested by the sanitarian and submitted this information to him. In our preliminary investigation, we identified that an additional 7 bedrooms, as I mentioned, would be the most practical increase. And if approved tonight, we'd only be looking for 7 bedrooms versus 10. Additionally, any bedrooms that would be, any modifications to this bedroom count that would be approved tonight would be subject to final approvals by Dennis and the sanitarian department for the details associated with the septic system constructions. We have built all of the 3-bedroom homes that were originally proposed and 4 additional 2-bedroom units to make up the 9 units at this point. The biggest objection that we've had over the marketing of the property has been the limitation of what's remaining for 2 bedrooms, and actually has been 2 bedrooms throughout the project. We've had success on 4 of the houses to be able to go 2 bedrooms, but now we have no more additional bedrooms available. One of the biggest objections, and I'm going to submit some letters that I'd like to be read in as well too, over the past marketing, because of the limitation of the number of additional bedrooms over 2, we've had a lot of hesitation to that. There will not be any changes to the styles of or the quality of the homes that we're building and offering, whether it be in size or design features, or the locations of the proposed homes on the remaining 5 units, the remaining 5 limited common elements.
These are just interior modifications
These
for
are
the
just
approved.
interior modifications to allow for either 1 or 2 additional bedrooms for these houses. So with 5 units being left, if we have a client that is looking for 4 bedrooms, we have the ability to do 2 houses with 4 bedrooms, or we have the ability to do the 3 additional houses with 1 additional bedroom for a total of 7. We see our primary buyers still to be empty nesters, and we have found that the empty nester buyers are still very strong in desires for more than 2 bedrooms. We have letters from our listing realtor and also from the manager of the office for our listing realtor as well too, which I'd like to submit. I have 10 copies here if you want to pass them around. That's from the manager. I believe also, George, your office was given a letter, was emailed a letter from Tony Terry, the project architect. If that hasn't been put into the record, I'd like to have that put into the record as well. We also have a letter from a potential buyer that is indicating that I'll take it as a positive comment, that they're planning on moving forward with a purchase in the event that we can have a 3rd bedroom approved. So I'll submit that as well if you want to pass it around. And there's also, this is the second letter from the realtor, reinforcing the fact that the 2 bedrooms have been difficult.
Do you want us to read the letter from Terry Architect?
I think I'd like to have all of them read. Yes, please.
So I'll tackle the first one. This is our application to the commission, Benton's Knoll Development, Guilford. Dear George, this is regarding the project known as Benton's Knoll in Guilford and the opportunity for the developer, Benton's Knoll LLC, to provide the remaining units with increased bedrooms due to recent changes in state septic design code. The project and the community of Benton's Knoll have benefited from Mr. Smith's patience and determination to see this project through while maintaining high values in the development of each unit and subdivision. Due to a difficult start during the financial crisis, when a great shift occurred in the housing market, his present state of progress in the development of 9 of 14 lots is a testament to his hard work and dedication to this project and his clients in their neighborhood. The units Mr. Smith has built have adapted to a changing market, are highly efficient and tailored to each client while working under a completely different market and economy than the one that was initially envisioned. Should he be approved to allow the additional bedrooms for the 5 remaining units, I know he will approach the situation mindful of all the important issues in placing new homes among those already in the current setting. The design for those new units will be respectful and consistent in scale and detail and will not depart from the guidelines already established. Very truly yours, Anthony Terry, AIA-LED, Project Architect, Benton's Knoll, Guilford. All right, we have, yep, you want to grab that one?
This is from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, October 2nd, 2019. Feasibility of the applicant's proposed modifications to increase total bedroom capacity for the Benton's Knoll development has been evaluated with regard to the availability of a suitable septic system expansion area. A review of existing soil tests located in the primary leaching area designated for building units 2, 5, 6, 11, and 13 indicates that adequate area is available for enlarging both capacity and length of the previously approved leaching systems by 7 additional bedrooms. The total flow capacity for the site would become 40 bedrooms. Based upon the soil test results and the site review, it is recommended the applicant be permitted to increase septic capacity for the site and allow for a total of 40 bedrooms with the following conditions. The revised septic system design shall be prepared by a professional registered engineer. And number 2, a maintenance plan shall be prepared for the site and approved by the Guilford Health Department, which includes best practice methods for controlling invasive vegetation growth in and around the septic system area, and which permits access to the leaching area for future repairs and maintenance.
There's a letter also from Sotheby's. Alan, would you take that one?
The home concern, Brokerage has had a subdivision at Benton's Knoll listed for over a year. This is a wonderful luxury project that draws a lot of interest. Although we have had some success marketing and selling these homes, one of the largest objections of buying or purchasing the Benton Knolls is that there is only 2 bedrooms. It is our recommendation that the remaining units be converted to 3-bedroom units, both for the purpose of sale and resale. In the resale market, the 3-bedroom home is far easier to sell than 2-bedroom home. Thank you very much for consideration. Kathy Mitchell.
Great, thank you.
Can you confirm for me what the correct number of bedrooms is? Because I'm seeing 3 different numbers from all.
There's currently 33 approved. We're asking for 7 more. It'll be an approval for 40.
There is also a note from Kevin McGee, and Kevin McGee is with us.
All right, special permit modification, Benton Mill PRD, 215 Corner Road, Guilford, Connecticut. The applicant is looking to revise the planned residential development site plan to allow for an increase in bedroom count to 43 units. The area of the leaching system is located in the conservation easement area. Section 4, grant or reserved rights and obligations in subsection F of the conservation easement document provides the homeowners association the right upon written application to the Planning and Zoning Commission and/or Inland Wetlands Commission or successors of either or any other body, if required, to construct, reconstruct, maintain, and repair as necessary above and below grade ground, public and private utilities, subject to a demonstration of the need for the proposed activity within the easement area. The approval of the special permit modification meets the conditions of the above conservation easement requirement. The conservation easement area is currently overgrown with invasive plants. The conservation easement document requires any landscaping approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, Inland Wetlands Commission, to be maintained by the homeowners association. These areas shown on the landscaping and wetlands planting plan as replant with New England wildlife conservation mix should be cut yearly between November 15th and April 1st. This area includes the leaching area for the septic system. To bring back the site into compliance with the conditions of the original approval, I recommend the following conditions of approval. 1, erosion control measures should be installed as shown on the approved site grading and erosion plan. The Town of Guilford Zoning Enforcement Office should be notified to inspect the sedimentation control measures prior to the construction. Erosion control sediment control measures should be installed around the perimeter of the work area. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fencing or hay bales. Soil erosion and sediment control measures should be maintained until vegetation is established suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. Qualified Professionals should be contracted to assist with identification and removal of the invasive plants within the field areas and the detention basins, rain gardens, and swales. These areas should be cut yearly between November 15th and April 1st, as noted in the approved landscaping plan. Trees and shrubs have been shown on the landscape plan but have not been planted yet. These landscape items should be planted within 1 year of a special permit modification to ensure that these trees and shrubs are maintained while the development is being built out.
Are those acceptable?
I think I'd need some clarification on it and some comment. The sedimentation controls you'd want installed during the construction process and any future septic systems that are being built, is that correct?
Correct. And it's part of the regulations. Anytime you disturb ground that you have that installed, and it also goes with any houses that you construct also,
Yeah,
that needs to be installed.
And we've been doing that, so I just want to clarify that the sedimentation and erosion control would be installed at the time of any activity in that area.
Right.
Okay, so
They don't have to be there all the time.
Exactly. I'm okay with that. As far as the maintenance is concerned, we actually have cut down all the invasives in that septic area at this particular time frame, and the maintenance on the other areas will be done on a regular schedule. The association is going to be turned over to the association is going to be turned over to the homeowner shortly, so we'll assist them with knowing what needs to be done as far as the maintenance in the common areas and things of that nature, same time as well too. So if those were your two comments, I don't have any objections to those.
Yeah, those are, like I said, those wordings are in the approved plans and also in your maintenance covenant for the stormwater system, and reports are supposed to be provided to us from that.
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Those are also the same conditions within your maintenance covenant for your stormwater system, so it's just kind of a reminder to you that we need this activity taken care of.
Okay.
And then there was a third point of the landscaping to be, the rest of the landscaping to be installed within 1 year of this approval, which hasn't been taken care of yet.
So the landscaping within 1 year of the modification?
Right, 1 year from when they vote to give you the modification.
And the definition of the landscaping that's be done, while we're on this subject, I guess probably I want to address it. Since the conversations I've had with Aaron, I have reached out to the people that originally did the landscape design, the landscape architect, as well as our supplier of landscape plants that are on the job. We use Van Welgens and one of the designers from there as well. And they have both walked the property and concluded that they feel as though that they should come back with a Rick Betty, who was the landscape design, architect, resolved that he thinks that he should come back with a modified design. The original design was obviously done on the concept of the road construction and everything that was originally conceptualized, I guess, as far as the project was concerned. Now that we have a road installed and we have houses installed and some of the other features, Rick feels though it's imprudent to come back and do some alternative designs for that. That design would have to be submitted to the town for approvals, obviously, but we feel as though that trying to go with what the original design was, there can be improvements that will be beneficial to the project based upon the actual physical conditions that exist today. So I'd want to qualify that based upon what we bring in for a modified design as well too, but we're willing to work with town staff in order to be able to try to accommodate things. As long as it makes sense from a construction schedule standpoint as well, to go in and do a lot of plantings where we're still going to have construction is not sensible. So we'd like to try to have that new design done and then review it with town staff in order to be able to come up with a practical plan for everybody.
Could we modify that to say that trees and shrubs as will be proposed in a new modified design?
I would say that's an accurate statement.
At this point, you have an approved plan.
Right.
You have an approved landscaping plan,
Right.
and that is what you should follow for your plan. If you would like to propose an amendment to your special permit with a revised landscaping plan, then you can submit that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's not a requirement from us, requiring you to
Absolutely,
modify.
I agree.
That's a request.
And then the
that
conditions
you
can
would
change
make.
at that point in time,
That's
once we
correct.
see that plan.
Okay, very good.
What I would suggest then is that we allow this third condition that you come forward with a modified plan that will allow us to remove that and proceed forward with your modified plan.
Makes sense.
Is 1 year not time for you to come up with that modified plan?
If the additional bedrooms helped us to build 5 more houses in 1 year, yes, it makes sense, but there's no sense in doing landscaping on a lot that's still going to be destroyed during the construction process.
I guess one point to that is that we've been getting some concerns from the neighboring properties that there's some trees that should be along the property lines which haven't been built up yet, which would provide screening to those neighbors, and that's sort of the need to push some of this landscaping to be done.
Already constructed units or on yet to be
No.
constructed?
Yet to be constructed areas there.
And some
I-
of the trees on those units, I believe, have been installed, but maybe not all of them.
As this is a public hearing, I believe that you'll be hearing from the neighbors at the time for public comment.
more of a clarifying question. So I'd like to just finish my presentation as well. When we first conceived this project, we had several meetings with town staff prior to our formal application, and I felt as though that this proved to be very constructive and beneficial, time well spent. We were approved, and it was commented that our application was one of the most thorough, and prior to this application, it also helped us to determine what would be required and desired by town staff to try to expedite the process. As soon as we had our approvals in place, we had 9 reservations to be able to build houses in here 9 years ago. Fortunately, it was a great feeling to have 9 reservations at that point, and we felt very confident with the success of the project. So we went through, built our road in its entirety, did our land clearing in its entirety as well too, and we moved full speed ahead. Unfortunately, the market did not stay with us and allow us to continue, so we built 1 out of the 9 houses. We also put up a model home, but it did not sell for 6 years, with the biggest objection being that it was a 2-bedroom house. So right now, we feel this approval does not really modify the impact of the project to the subdivision, to the original approvals at all. The home styles are staying the same. The number of units are staying the same. The square footages of the houses that we built previously will be comparable to what probably will be built in the future. We've been designing to each individual client's needs within the parameters that Tony Terry established for us and that he continues to maintain for us. And based upon the letters that you've seen there, historically, we feel as though that we'll have the opportunity to sell houses faster, and that's really, I think, everybody's goal at this point, is to try to get this project finished up. We never anticipated it to go for 9 years, that's for sure. That's the brunt of my presentation associated with this.
Can you mention to them that there's a bond also?
Oh, as well as there's a $125,000 bond that's still in place with the town. So there's... Actually, I read it today, and it doesn't say specifically the road. So that the bond is for improvements. I actually have a copy of it with me if you'd like me to read it. Would the commission be interested in looking at the existing map also for what units have sold and what units have not? The performance bonds reads, Dime Bank has placed an assignment on hold on an account XYZ for in the name of Benton's Knoll in the amount of $125,000 effective July 9, 2014, because we had a refinance, so that's why it's newer than the original approvals, for improvements on the above property in accordance with the reference site plan and subdivision plan. Said account shall not be reduced or released unless the bank receives written approval to do so from the town of Guilford. The bank and Benton's Knoll LLC hereby acknowledge that this letter shall also serve as an authorization for the city and town of Guilford to request and receive information on the status of the account at any time. The town of Guilford shall have the right to withdraw the account at any time for the purpose of completing required site work or subdivision improvements as shown on the approved plan. So I think that addresses more than just the road. I can do the pictures. I also think that it's important for the commission. Have any of the commission members been recently out to the project at all?
A drive-by, but...
Okay. There's many pictures here, and I can go through them individually, but I want to be sure that the commission understands that the project actually has been well landscaped on an individual lot basis, as well as trees along the roads and things. So it isn't a strict subdivision. There's mature trees that have grown since we built there that you can see. Those photographs indicate where there's a large outcropping of rock, where in the original designs there was a lot of trees and things to be planted there, which I do not feel, and neither do the landscape experts feel, as though the trees would go there, which was really one of the first items that precipitated the concept of having a new plan done. But I think you'll see in all of these pictures, and I'm happy to answer specific questions if you have them, that there's been good tree growth, good plantings around the properties themselves, as well as at the entrance and coming into the road. I'm not saying that this is following your original plan in its entirety, but it definitely is, I think, an attractive neighborhood based upon the plantings that are there at this point. There's another submission I'd like to make, which is from the landscape architect that reinforces my previous comments.
your hand.
Do you need additional copies of your letter, George, or was that already passed around?
Of what letter?
The letter that,
No, we
that came
haven't.
from Tony Terry?
No, we have that.
Okay.
I think that it's important for the commission, are you finished?
Yes, at this point, thank you.
The only thing that's being requested here in terms of a change from the original approval is the maximum number of bedrooms. All other aspects of the original approval, all the conditions of the original approval, all of the, plans that were approved previously are still in force. I mean, we've had some discussion about possible modifications of those plans, especially related to the landscaping. But for now, the only thing on the table is the question of the maximum number of bedrooms. How they're distributed within the project, whether you would use them or not, is totally in the future. Whether those would trigger any other plan modifications required, for example, buildings that were different from or substantially bigger than what was proposed before, would have to come back separately to the commission. So the only thing that's being requested is the modification from 33 to 40 total bedrooms for the property.
That's what this application is all about tonight.
There's been some stipulations that, for instance, Kevin's trying to add regarding other parts that aren't related to bedrooms. So how do we juxtapose those two items?
I think he's talking about impact of construction related to the septic system, is my understanding. The other aspects of the, Kevin can answer
I think
that
the other
question.
aspects of his comments were basically in the original approvals as well.
Just reminders of some stuff in the original approvals there.
Reiterating the original.
And there's one thing really wasn't clarified in the original approval, which Dennis brought up, which I also kind of made notion there, is that the maintenance of the septic area and sort of the field area wasn't really clearly written out in the original landscaping plan and upkeep part of the plans there. So that's why we both made points regarding that area there. A special permit, once they open it up in a public hearing, anything gets put back on the table within the approval.
We're going to have Gail comment.
I absolutely agree. I'm sorry, Attorney Gail McTaggart. I'm from Secor, Cassie, McPartland, represent the applicant. What we're saying is absolutely true. We're here to look at the increased bedrooms. But I did want to point out that the approval of this commission dealing with the septic actually has always been on a case-by-case basis. Every one of those systems gets done. They get an as-built, it's brought in, it's looked at, and it's approved. So this approval that you did isn't changed by what we're doing. We'll add more bedrooms, but the provisions are that the engineer design septic system together with pre-construction stakeouts and as-built diagrams shall be provided for each dwelling. So it's already part of the approval that's in place. That was my only point. Thanks.
Any clarifying questions from commissioners?
Can you just detail what I know you said it in the beginning of your presentation, but what the changes to the state septic design code are?
Actually, there's a letter from our engineer that, I don't know if it's been in your packet or not, that was submitted to Dennis Johnson. In essence, it came down to, I believe it was in 2017, the daily discharge that was allowed for a project without having to go before state approval was 5,000 gallons. In 2017, it might have been, I'm pretty sure it was in 2017, they then allowed the maximum discharge to go to 7,500 gallons. So if that 7,500 gallon criteria was back in 2010, we would have applied for more bedrooms at that point, but that was our ceiling for our control, 33 bedrooms at 150 gallons a day. So today now at 7,500 gallons, it allows for those additional bedrooms, but we're still well below that 7,500 gallon max.
I'll just make one clarifying point. So we basically have to deal with the approval that we put forward, which also includes the trees and shrubs as were proposed on the original site plan. And if we were to approve it, we would probably go forward with Kevin's 1 year to have this done. Obviously, I'm very empathetic to your need to make sure you're not planting something just to die, or if there's modifications to that. But, we really need to live with what's been approved as opposed to just throwing that out until you come back at some later date with a site plan modification.
I'm in agreement with that we can maintain the status quo with regards to the plantings, subject to Kevin's current comments. Also, under the understanding that when we come in with a modified plan, we can address that at that point for the how prudent it is to plant within a year based upon where the plantings are going to be proposed, or any modifications of the plantings being proposed. As I said earlier, it doesn't make sense to plant on the lots that we still have to build on. This is the letter I was just referencing that I believe, I don't know if it's been submitted, but here's a copy to go around.
Sean, why don't you grab that
It was
one?
the one from Silva One.
You want to read that one in?
Can we read it in?
Sure.
This is addressed by Philip Johnson, Chairman of Planning and Zoning, Town of Guilford, regarding modification of special permit approval, Benton Knowles Development. Dear Mr. Johnson, on February 3rd, 2010, the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approved a special permit for a planned residential development on 15.48 acres at 215 Colonial Road. Special permit approval was for 14 single-family homes with 33 total bedrooms. At the time of these approvals, the reason for limiting the project to 33 bedrooms was in order to stay under the Connecticut Public Health Code threshold of 5,000 gallons per day of septic effluent that can be discharged into a subsurface sewage disposal system. 33 bedrooms at 150 gallons per day totals 4,950 gallons per day. Since the 2010 approvals, 9 of the houses have been built with a total of 23 bedrooms. There are still 5 more homes that can be built. Based on the limitation of 33 total bedrooms, the last 5 homes would have to be 2-bedroom units. On July 1st, 2017, the Connecticut Public Health Code was revised to increase the septic effluent threshold to 7,500 gallons per day. This increase in allowable flow allows the final 5 units to potentially be developed as 4-bedroom units. 23 existing bedrooms plus 5 proposed homes times 4 bedrooms, 43 total bedrooms. 43 bedrooms times 150 gallons per day, 6,450 gallons per day, well under the 7,500. Note that any increase in design flows would be contingent upon the redesign of the septic systems by a professional engineer, would be subject to all of the regulations of the Connecticut Public Health Code, and would require review and approval by both the local and state health departments. Please contact us with your questions, comments or questions, and let us know if the proposed monthly inspection schedule is acceptable. Respectfully submitted, Brian J. Baker.
So just so you know, after Dennis received that letter, he had some comments and requested some information to prove out how many bedrooms could be put in there preliminarily. And after reviewing the site plan, the engineers have resolved that they feel as though that 7 bedrooms would be the maximum that we would want to request, which satisfies our needs. And it results in a minimal impact to the original septic designs as far as footprint is concerned, or MLSS, part of the design criteria for a septic system as well. I do have copies of that if you want more copies for the record.
Your engineer did send over copies of.
Yes, he actually
their
sent
4
over.
pages in the plan.
Yeah, he sent over an
showing
original
all those
one, Dennis
calculations.
commented on it, and he sent over the others as well, too.
We have the revised ones for the
Gotcha.
record as well.
You have this.
We don't need those.
We have the plans from the
So
engineer
you don't
as
need
well.
this, right?
Oh,
We have.
And to your point regarding the landscape review, I have a letter from Rick Bett, Silent Wind Consulting LLC. Russ, per our conversation, I've started the review of the current conditions at Benton's Knoll. The scope of this review will include the following items: identify and comment upon conditions of original mature trees, landscape, the current features, walls, road, etc., and their integration into the landscape, the existing structures and their relation to the site, how to best implement the original landscape design and/or modifications to adapt to the current conditions. Identify the elements that will enrich the site as a whole. If there are other areas of concern, please let me know. Best, Rick.
And he was the original landscape architect on the project as well. He is our RLSA, I think. No?
Okay. Are there any additional clarifying questions from commissioners? Would anyone in the public like to ask a clarifying question? After questions, we'll go to statements in support and then statements against. Do you have a question? If you could step forward and name and address for the record, would be great. Thank you.
Ann Miriam, 146 Colonial Road. My question is that, I just want to be sure I heard this correctly, that there's no attention that needs to be paid to whether we call it landscaping or dirt or piles of rock or anything like that on a site until it is actually built. And after that time, then they'll pay attention. But in the meantime, you can have undeveloped dirt, no trees, no nothing, where water runs off. Is that correct?
You want me to answer that?
Well, it's to you.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
There
Thank you.
there are sites, there is a unit that we are using as a staging unit for construction on the property that does have material stockpile there, but it is backed up with erosion control. And I think there's only one site really that might be applicable for that at this time.
On the original site plan, did it specify time to implement the landscape design? Do you know?
No.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I know it's an imperfect answer. Certainly. Are there any other clarifying questions from the audience? Would anyone like to speak in favor of this project? Would anyone like to speak against the addition of bedrooms and the increased capacity for septic? Sure, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Gregory Coleman. I live in 80 Old Sachem's Head Road. This is my wife, Debbie. Appreciate your time tonight. I have a handout for each one of you that will, one, the letter I'm going to read in the record, which I was advised to do. I know you guys can read, but I was advised to read it into the record. Followed up with a letter by Senator Edward Meyer that he wrote in 2011 that still holds true today. And then after that is several series of photos. What I'd like to do is just speak to you guys about our experience with Benton's Knoll over the last 10 years. Thank you. I'm not giving my last one away.
Do you have
I'll use one there. If you want to pass them one down.
We have one left.
I'll give you mine when I'm done.
Okay.
Forgive me, I'm not great at public speaking, so I'm just going to sit here and sweat and be a little nervous. We're Gregory and Debbie Coleman. We live at 80 Old Sachem's Head Road, downslope and surrounded by Benton's Knoll. Therefore, you may understand why we have some water and septic concerns, as well as a desire for some necessary action to protect our property. Location. So we're on the northwest side of the project on Old Sachem's Head Road. Major impacts to our property. Our lot sits downslope from the project. Impact. Clear cutting essentially the entire development and the raise in topography created by earthworks has caused a significant increase in water flow onto our property. Once the septics are constructed and in use on the lots above us, we believe the seepage will add to the water draining down to our property and increase our impact. We have seen an increase of standing water on the western side of our property, as well as flow from the southern side into our basement. Clear cutting has led to major increases in wind, so significant that we eventually had to rebuild a room off our kitchen to compensate for the increased winds. The significant increase of wind and water onto our property, plus the repeated violations by the developer and working beyond permitted hours, has had a profound effect on our peace, privacy, and enjoyment of our home. Debbie works from home full-time, and that really exacerbates these issues. While other neighbors have experienced some of these issues, and some of them are sitting here tonight with us, we believe we're the only home facing these extreme impacts. And just a little bit of history for you now. Although we attended all original planning and zoning meetings, we now believe we were naive in terms of identifying potential issues and how they needed to be addressed. To be frank, we relied on the town and this committee to do this on our behalf. There have been a number of occasions over the years in which we participated in discussions with town officials and the developer where negative impacts to our property were acknowledged and there were discussions about what could be done to remedy said impacts. However, very little has actually been done. So in 2011, we enlisted the assistance of Senator Ed Meyer, who actually wrote a letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which was read into the records, and it's attached to your handout. This resulted in a number of evergreens being planted, but they have not been maintained. We've seen evidence that they're not doing well and they will not survive. It's been a slow-moving, ever-changing project. Property development is still not close to completion more than 10 years later with little or no plantings installed. Work violations over the past 10 years, and particularly working beyond the permitted hours, have not been properly addressed by the town or the developer. So this has basically led us to ask for some necessary actions. We believe that considering this impact on us, we believe that what we're asking for is very reasonable. And I have 5 points here. 1, we would like a clear and defined process for finding work violations and or non-compliance with this committee's requirements. 2, we would like oversight on the property. Trees are dying, safety fencing is missing on the property, and false dirt piles surround our property. 3, landscaping, and this is what we've been going back and forth on for 10 years. We have the inability to install landscaping ourselves in the development. We did spend $5,000 on pine trees on our property, but they're going to take 30 years to make an impact. You will see from the photos that the topography of our property relative to the development severely limits what we can do to minimize the water and wind impacts from the development. We asked the committee to direct a phased approach for landscaping to be installed, starting with our area this fall. We would like ourselves or our representatives to have input into the landscape design relative to our property so we can all agree on what's needed. Trees absorb water, strengthen soil, and will give us some sense of normal after 10 years of living in this project. Number 4, Lot 5, which sits behind us and above us. We want it limited to a 2-bedroom house with no pool. No pool was previously agreed upon at the 4/2/14 Planning and Zoning meeting. And 5, and finally, we ask that the installation of landscaping relative to our property, as well as the limits on Lot 5, be a required condition of tonight's decision. Thank you.
So I'm just going to make a couple comments, but feel free to chirp back. We rely heavily upon the Director of Health with respect to septic. None of us are septic engineers. So, when they say, it will not result in additional runoff or, and that it has the capacity, we rely on that, as commissioners from town staff. And I guess the other question is, as you know, and I'm just looking at this where you want the house limited to 2 bedrooms, the physical size of the house isn't changing, it's just the internal configuration. So how is that impactful? And I guess finally, my sense is that you'd like this project to be done as much as the developer would like it to be done. And that, at least in my opinion, from what we've read into the record, the ability to add additional bedrooms could and should expedite the process of selling these and moving it toward completion, which I think would make everybody happy, including you all.
I don't think anybody's saying this project would be complete. It could be 30 years from now that Russ puts a complete on it, so that we spend our entire lives living in this project, and that is just not fair anymore. I've had several meetings with the town, with the first selectman. The former first selectman came out to our property. They told me that they were looking to modify something like this going forward because it's clearly not fair to a homeowner now who, I'm assuming you looked at the photos and you see what we go home to every day. So imagine going home to that every day. or trying to enjoy your backyard. This past Saturday we did, but they worked 5 hours over when they were supposed to. 10 years later.
I mean, I think if you, and I'm sorry, Debbie Coleman, obviously this way. So I think your question is fair, right, in regards to the size of the house and the number of bedrooms. But I think if you look at this site, there's clear variance in the house sizes. So there's some homes that the lot size is much larger than others. So maybe it's not necessarily a bedroom restriction, but more a house size restriction. Because if you look at, you can see in one of the pictures, the house that sits up on the hill behind, that's a massive house. If that sits behind us and all that concrete and all that is taking up all the land that's there, that's been backfilled, that's just rock, that's just dirt that's there, and you put a concrete structure on top of it, more concrete takes up more space, doesn't help with the runoff.
I do appreciate that. And I also, there is a site plan that's been approved for this. And so, it really, the only thing that's really before us right now is looking at the septic issue and the increasing potential of bedrooms. I mean, we're not in a position to modify house sizes and open that up.
Okay.
Fair.
In an effort to get you a little bit of clarity on some of these points of yours, was there anything in the previous special permit regarding hours of working and that sort of thing?
It was.
Read you that condition of the original approval in 2010. Condition of special permit, the hours of construction to be only between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday, and no heavy equipment shall be moved or driven on or off the site on Saturdays.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your process in terms of what you perceive to be violations of the special permit is to contact your zoning enforcement officer, and they will start that process. Is that correct?
What is the process? Do you know? What's the process?
Well, so I think, so we've had a change, right? So Reggie Reed used to be the former enforcer. So we've had a long history with Reggie and working with over violations. And we finally got to a point where she would actually fine Russ when he went over. So
After I finally got Mazda out to our property, maybe 5 years in, is when the fines finally started happening.
So when Erin came on board and we had Erin out at our house and we talked about these violations that were occurring, she indicated to us, and Erin, I don't mean to speak for you, but that you would need to witness the violations in order for you to be able to enforce them, to which we said, how can you possibly witness violations if you're not out to the site on a daily basis?
So at some point there was a change in the way it was handled. I'm not sure why.
Well, let me put it back. Are you acceptable with living with the restrictions of the...
Yeah, I'd like to respond,
Sure.
if I could, sure. So, I mean, the first comment was regarding water runoff and downslope. His property has always been downslope of this. We haven't changed the topography that's now directing water to his property, specifically for the surface that's there, as well as the fact that there's actually zero potential that he's going to have any impact from the septic systems. All the septic systems are downslope of his property as well. And there's no way that water flow from the septic systems can get to his property. He mentioned he was surrounded by this project. It butts us on two sides. He's abutted by a road and a neighbor on a third side. The house sizes have never changed. We were originally approved between 2,800 and 3,200 square feet for house sizes, and that has been the criteria previously and will be the criteria going forward. It's been 9 years since approval. The work hours, yes, there's been violations. I'd be the first to acknowledge that. I'm not on the site 24/7, and sometimes guys just can't pay attention, and we have been fined, and we've paid the fines, and we've acknowledged that. We've had situations early on in the construction process when they were literally paving a road, and it went after 5 o'clock. I mean, we just couldn't start that there. The situation that I had with Reggie was, if I felt as though we were going to go over for a substantial reason, I gave her notice of that. Actually, last week, doing landscaping on the property, I sent Erin an email saying that our guys would be working on the property probably after noon on Saturday, but they're not doing anything with equipment. They were laying sod. So there's no noise to be made from that standpoint. It was also clarified that the work hours were associated with outside noise-making work hours. And granted, it has had some violations there that we've acknowledged and paid for. But any work inside the houses, painting or trimming or whatever that might be inside the houses, that was defined as being allowed during the construction. So it isn't that after after noon on Saturday or after 4 o'clock on weekdays, that people can't work there. We just can't work there with heavy equipment, and we can't work there making noise. I want to make sure that's
And
clarified.
again, speaking to the process, it probably, and help me if I'm wrong here, it's not within the authority of the zoning enforcement officer to grant exceptions to work hours that are in a special permit?
So I think it's a matter, we're not looking for the exception, I think it's a matter of
Well, I mean, you had
definition
indicated
of
that
the
you
work.
had called Reggie and said, we're going to go over. And she, I don't know, apparently said okay or not, I don't know.
Well, it wasn't that she said okay, she felt that that was the best way to be able to preempt it, if at all possible. But, I mean, if we're in the middle of paving a road and for some reason they're just not going to finish by 5 o'clock.
Right. Well, we're done with the paving part of it anyway, right?
No, we actually have to do a final coat on the road down the road once the construction is completed. Okay? A couple other comments. Yes, we did plant trees, and the trees really could be maintained, but because of the fact that they're at the bottom of the construction slope, it's very difficult to do that, which just reinforces planting prematurely is not in the best interest of good, healthy plants over the long term. Pools. We previously agreed not to put a pool on Lot 5 when we came in for previous pool approvals here, so I have no issues with the objection to having a pool built on this property. And the fact that we have lots that do have fill on them, those lots would not have a structure put on top of the fill. Those are simply staging and stockpiling areas at this particular point, and any foundations that would be built would have to go to proper soils for bearing conditions for a new foundation. So those are the comments regarding his comments.
Excuse me, Russ, do you have any safety fencing around your stockpile areas or any areas where there is?
We don't have safety fencing. Definition of safety fencing, my definition is the orange construction fencing. It's never been a requirement. We've always used silt fencing to be able to do that.
Do you have silt fencing around your stockpile?
We have silt fencing. There,
It might be buried, but it's not there. They're dumping piles of rocks behind our home. There's
and
no protection.
if it's necessary to have silt fencing reinstalled, I'd be happy to do it.
I would ask if you could take a ride out just to ensure compliance with that, that would be helpful for everyone.
I think we've had many meetings and with the Comans and also with Mr. Smith regarding one, this condition of hours of operation. These hours of construction are more restrictive than even the town noise ordinance. Some are outside of hours, of working hours for just town offices in general. This is somewhat a problematic condition of approval and makes it quite difficult to enforce. In order for me to issue enforcement orders, I need to have documentation of violations. Simple emails from neighbors may not, as far as an appeal being made to an enforcement order, I have to protect I have to be able to document actual violations and witness.
If someone were to bring to you dated digital photography.
I think that would be a question for our town council.
Well,
on
we can
how-
ask, because
how
I
to do that.
certainly am empathetic that you have a weekend that you should be able to enjoy, but also that the homeowners should be able to live under the restrictions that were agreed to originally.
Correct. It has also been discussed that is also the option of the builder to seek a modification of that condition. As it is a catch-22 as far as limited hours of operation, but trying to speed a project along as well. The daily fines for a citation is $150 a day. And in some cases where you have a delivery truck in traffic and things, in the scope of having a construction project end on time or meet a deadline, a builder would gladly pay $150 for the day of a violation rather than falling behind and canceling an order or not being able to have a delivery of material or things like that. So there are logistical problems
So I think
as well.
we're not non-compassionate people. So, but 10 years I've been living with construction at my house. 10 years of my life, or 9 years, whatever we want to call it.
They'll finish in
It's
6.
been a long time, so I can recognize if they need to work. And when Reggie was doing that, when you would notify Reggie you were running over, that's great, but last Saturday, they were sawing outside. They may have said they were doing landscaping, but they were sawing. It's enough after 9 years. So to think we could amend the hours, you approved it, if we want to go back to that, we approved it based on these hours. To think that we should now be subject to more construction on top of what we've already experienced is
You're not suggesting
fair.
tell them to stop all work, right? Just work within the hours that are,
To adhere to hours and to keep it to like you shouldn't be sawing outside, you shouldn't have heavy machinery running, anything that you don't want to listen to, maybe when you have people over and you're trying to enjoy your backyard after 9 years, I don't want to listen to either. I don't want to look at the workers up there using the porta potty year after year after year. Those are the things that we contend with as taxpayers at this point. 9 years, we've been sympathetic. We want it to sell as well. Great if it's not 10 bedrooms and it's 7. But we do sit down the slope. If you look at some of our pictures, the lot has been filled in with, the topography has changed. I'm not an engineer, but there's pooling water on my property. We just want some landscaping put in and an end to this misery.
If you guys look at the second to last page of photos, that's the same tree you're looking at. So you guys look at that photo and tell me that topography did not get raised.
I didn't say the topography didn't get raised. I said that the topography has always drained to your property.
It was flat. You can see where it was flat.
It
Now it's high.
wasn't flat. I have the original topography and the current topography. It was never flat.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just bring to your attention the time frame of this approval. This application was approved in February of 2010, and therefore statutorily, there is a total of 14 years for this construction. So this is within the time frame of being an active permit and is not an expired application.
I'm very empathetic to 10 years, but again, we have to live within the constraints of what's legal.
So help us understand how he's able to come back for exceptions continuously. So we've been able, pools weren't part of the original proposal. We've come back, we've allowed pools. The septic, I get it's maybe a law change, so the septic may be a little different, but so he's been able to come back for approvals. Again, we were naive at the beginning of this, not knowing better. Probably we should have come with a lawyer and asked for more from the get-go, and we didn't. So we're the only project, or we're the only house, and sure, okay, you say it's only 2 sides, but it's all of our living space, my kitchen, my living room, my dining room, my patio, my grill, everything looks out upon construction constantly.
Can I also say
I want
that
some trees, I want some
town
trees.
employees have stated that there are areas that he should be able to install trees now, and he's just not willing to do it. So I'm asking the commission to make it part of the approval tonight, to ask him to start a phased approach of landscaping. I'm willing to give up the other things if we can get that done.
And yeah, I gotta find it a little, Kevin.
Camera.
All right, we actually are running low on the tape, so what I'd like to propose is a break. We will conduct no business during the break, and we will come back in a couple minutes. Okay? We done? Having conducted no business, we will call the meeting back to order. It's been brought to my attention that people are in the room that would like to speak in favor of the application, and we'd like to give everyone a chance to be heard. So if there's anybody here that would like to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. So please do, yeah. It's not amplified, it's really just for the television. So you're a star now.
15 minutes. So I live at 2 Benton's Knoll, and the McNamara's live at 9 Benton's Knoll, and we're here to support Russ. It's for basically the same reason they have. We want this project over, and I think the second you put 3 bedrooms on the market, they'll go quicker than 2 bedrooms, and so that's the reason I'm doing it. I would like to have the project done, and I'm sympathetic with you, but that's why I think they should do it, because it'll get done quicker. Thank you.
It seems that everyone agrees to that as well. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this project? Would anyone like to speak against? Please step forward. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Hugh Duffy. I live on 62 Old Sachem's Head Road. I live next to Comens. I do believe that someone from the town needs to look into the adverse water effect, the runoff, okay? It's not a flat piece of property. The water either goes into their house or the next property over. It does build up. I buy into the concept of what Russ is doing. I believe there's a need for it in the town. I believe condos, there are affluent people that want to live like that, but you've got to look into it. There's not something that's been put on the table to remedy the issue. There is significant runoff. There needs to be something put in place to address that issue. And I understand it's not a committee issue. Somebody from the town needs to look into it. There's a problem there. The pooling of the water after a rainfall is significant. I don't think they have communicated the depth of the issue, and I don't think the town's looked into it. It's not remotely close to a flat piece of property. You can't look at it from a map. It comes right down, it goes towards their house, it goes to the next property over, and it builds up. Nobody is thinking about this. You've got to look at it. There needs to be some drainage that goes into it that the builder doesn't want to look into. And once he turns it over to the homeowners association, they're not going to want to touch it either. This needs to be addressed. I buy into the concept of what you have tonight, the fact that he needs to make them more marketable, absolutely. Not changing the footprint of the houses, absolutely. But you've got to look into the water. The water issue is coming downhill, going to their house, going to the next property over. That hasn't been addressed and discussed in any magnitude tonight. That's it.
Kevin, would that fall under your purview in terms of,
Janice.
where does that, is it Janice?
There's an engineering plan, a grading plan, and engineered plan for this planned residential development.
And I believe at the beginning of the project, on the files in front of me, they looked at the existing drainage versus the constructed drainage.
If we could
But of the paperwork
refer
ready.
to Janice just to take a look, just in terms of whether or not the original projections are in line with.
Yeah, they're down.
Yeah, I have that.
And this is all, the original topography all slopes
I
that
have
way.
the original.
So
Yeah, your
what I'm
high
going to
grade is all
suggest
here.
is
There's
that
absolutely no way
town,
we're gonna come
we have a
from
new
here.
town engineer as well. We have a
So-
lot of
That's
engineers.
right.
Russ, we,
That she review this.
We have
Again,
it.
it's
Thank
beyond
you.
the scope of our purview, but we can recommend that, and maybe there's solutions that can be developed, but I don't think it's something we can.
Is all the stormwater management that's on the permitted drawings installed?
Yes.
Is there a designated site for staging your materials?
Never has been.
Never has been, so it's just
It's a lot behind.
around the
It was previously
property.
it was previously on a lot that we're currently building on, or currently built on, and it was moved to another lot. So as we sell units, if we need to move the material around, we do. If we sell a unit on the lot that's behind their house immediately, that will go away, and the new house will be built there.
Yeah, I mean, other question would be just on the drainage plans, those are, that's a finished project, right? So that has the drainage plan, or is it, I'm just saying,
This is
like,
not
if
a
someone's,
finished project.
let me reword this a little bit better. It sounds like there is material that's being stored, there's movement of material around the site, which is, possibly piling up, covering the silt fences, and that new sort of formation is contributing to runoff. I'm not so certain that we would see it in sort of the engineered proposed plan for what the project will be like. It sounds like
Any
it
water that
is.
falls on the lot that we're speaking of now would have eventually ended up on the Coleman property with or without the pile there.
Any additional comments from the audience? Yes, please come forward, state your name and address. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Barbara Fisher. I'm at 102 Colonial Road. I'm at the very bottom of the hill, and I too have a drainage issue with how the runoff is now coming down the hill. There's a drainage culvert that goes underneath the road, above the road by Ann Merriman's house. and then it drains behind her house, and then in front of my house. I replaced the culvert because it needed to be replaced at my home. So it's a big culvert, and my driveway got washed out this spring when we had a lot of rain. I'm a little bit concerned about taking more water in because I know that this was an unusual storm that we had, but adding more water to that by having more solid surfaces and more...
I don't think we're going to have any more solid surfaces.
Okay.
And again, this really just goes to the
It's
subsurface
effluent.
infiltration of septic systems.
Yeah, okay. So,
I-
and it's...
We're not changing the
Okay.
footprint in terms of
Good.
houses,
Okay.
pavements, design, just interior, and adding some...
Fantastic. And just adding a little bit more water to the grand scheme of things.
Well, to the
Yeah.
groundwater.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sorry to take...
No, not at all. Thank you for coming up. Anyone else like to speak in favor or against? Someone like to make a motion to close?
I'll make the motion to close.
Second. Anything else from town staff? All in favor? Thank you. Next. John Saunders, 73 Meadow Street, map 32, lot 85, zone R6, special permit and coastal site plan for remediation of approximately, I believe it's 1,720 square feet of tidal wetlands due to unauthorized filling. Mr. Harkins.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingly, Connecticut. I'm here tonight on behalf of my client, Mr. John Saunders, who's actually in the audience back there. John, give a little wave. For his project at 73 Meadow Street. So what you have in front of you is a remediation CAM/soil erosion control plan. This was brought on by a notice of non-compliance by DEP. So in the file, there's a notice dated back October 25th of 2018, almost a year ago. DEP came to the site, recognized that there was potentially an issue, and had Mr. Saunders look into it further. We were retained basically because we do a lot of coastal engineering. We do a lot of work with notice of violations in DEP projects. So we were retained about beginning of the summer to look into this matter with DEP. We initially had a meeting on site with DEP and town staff to discuss and give an overview, lay out a project scope of how to move forward. We have a full site survey done by Anderson Associates. We also had our soil scientists go out to the site, flag up all the wetlands, and locate the coastal jurisdiction line and any piles or any disturbance that was past the CJL. So what you have in front of you is a remediation plan. That 1,700 square feet is highlighted in this area that you see here. The dark line is the 25-foot coastal resource setback. So you can see in this area, the client did go over the coastal jurisdiction line, so he is in DEP's jurisdiction, hence the plan that you have in front of you. So this plan was approved by DEP. There's a letter sent, I believe it's in the file, for that. It's dated September 23rd. It was signed by the big man himself, Brian Thomas, up at DEP, or Brian Thompson, rather. So we do have the approval of this plan that was to be implemented. Now, the reason that we're here tonight is, in order to implement this plan, we have a small section above the CJL line that we have to grade back. So because we are working in the CJL line, that's DEP's jurisdiction, but we need to grade this bank back, hence we're at the local level for the CAM application. So we're here for the CAM application for that work. Also, we're here tonight for a special permit. I was talking with Aaron, the zoning enforcement officer. So there was some fill obviously deposited in the area, in the wetlands. So it's almost a permit after the fact, just to make the application complete. He put fill in. We need a special permit to dump that fill. That fill now has to come out.
You're asking us to give you a special permit to put the fill in?
No, it's to clean it. There was supposed to be a special permit in order for them to put it in to begin with. That wasn't taken out. So here's the permit to do that.
To take it out?
To take it out, to put it in, and now we have to take it out.
Really?
Yeah, it's a permit after the fact. So,
It gets better. Wow.
So we do have a permit to put the fill in that we have to take out. So that's what we're here for tonight, as well as to work and do that minor grading in order to achieve DEP's plan. So with that being said, that ends my presentation. Doesn't necessarily end this project that's going to be in front of you, because we're all set with DEP. There are some issues that Aaron brought up from the local level that now have to be addressed in forthcoming applications.
Can we not approve the deposition of the materials and just approve the removal?
Well,
I mean, that seems...
touch
I mean-
on the extent of work that has occurred on 73 Meadow Street. Over the past several years, there has been filling of this property. The last time this property was before you was in 2013, I believe, to raise the house in order to be compliant with flood elevations. At the time, the surrounding grades to the house, about 15 feet off of either side of the house, was at elevation 6. If you look at the map currently, we are up near elevation 11, elevation 12. There have been no coastal site plan applications made nor special permits for any of the fill that has been deposited on the site. In addition, there is a large retaining wall at the rear of the property that would serve as a flood and erosion control structure that is unpermitted. Enclosed porches and patios that were constructed without approval. I have a letter addressed to Mr. Saunders. I had issued a cease and desist order on October 2nd, 2018, and at the same time, Kevin Zavoy from Deep was also out and issued a notice of non-compliance. This application addresses the state's violation, yet we do not have any applications addressing any of the local violations that have occurred on the property. It is, I'm looking for the applicant or the property owner to provide some type of compliance statement outlining the steps and the anticipated timeline to address all of the local concerns. I think that is relevant in granting this coastal site plan application at this time.
So are you saying that until you're satisfied that there is a plan for remediation of all the other violations that we should not grant this special permit?
I think in the time frame that the state is asking to have the filling of the tidal wetlands and that violation remediated, I think that I have no problems going forward in allowing that. I would allow some grading to establish a 2-to-1 slope at that area landward beyond the CJL. However, I would not encourage the commission to authorize any deposition of fill anywhere else on the property, any material that's being pulled from the tidal wetlands to be deposited anywhere else on the property, as we still have existing violations for the extent of fill that has occurred.
Just put a condition in that any material removed be taken off the site?
I think
completely
that
off
is
the site.
appropriate, and that
It
Mr.
is?
Harkin has
Okay.
already added that to his plan. However, I would like some commitment from the property owner as to how this local violation will be resolved in an estimated time frame, if that can be provided.
So basically what has to be done here in a nutshell is the town approval process can't happen until DEP is satisfied. So now that DEP is satisfied and this is off the table, now Mr. Saunders can come in with almost the same application to CAM, and I believe it was a special permit for the fill to handle all the town's issues. But that just couldn't be done. This had to be done. The filling, porches, retaining walls, patios that were put in without a permit.
And at that time, the commission can, and our floodplain manager can look at that the extent of fill that has occurred since the original 2013 raising of the house and regrading of the site, and can determine whether or not one wall functions as a flood and erosion control structure, and if all of this fill is necessary or compliant with the coastal.
Right now, we don't have any plans addressing the violations
Correct.
other than.
Correct.
Correct, you can't look at the town's issues.
Until
You can
people
only,
satisfy.
exactly, you can only look at the DEP plan that's in front of us, which would be that minor grading. That gets approved. The client pursuant to DEP's letter only has to January 1, 2020 to get this all done. So he's under a very strict time constraint, not only to get it done, but have it stabilized. They want grass growth on there. He also has to monitor it for 2 years after the fact, submit reports to DEP.
I was noticing that's a pretty narrow window right now.
Absolutely. So, again, after this gets approved tonight, then we're almost mandated to start right away. For example, even if for some reason you did not approve it tonight, he still has to start that wetlands cleanup, in the next couple of days per DEP.
Rolling the dice, I guess.
Yeah, he's almost forced to by what DEP has stipulated.
No reason to
We'll
remove
read
this.
into the record what
Sure.
DEP has said. Dated September 23rd, 2019, John Saunders, 73 Meadow Street, Guilford, Connecticut, 06437, RE, Tidal Wetlands Restoration Plan File, #LIS-2018-4025-V, Town of Guilford. On September 12, 2019, the department received a restoration plan for 72 Meadow Street, Guilford, in response to a notice of non-compliance, non-LIS 2018-4025V, which was issued on October 25, 2018. The restoration plan proposes the following: install erosion and sedimentation controls prior to construction. 2, remove the elevation of the pre-work grade approximately 20 square feet of fill from an area of tidal wetlands located adjacent to the western property line. 3, remove to elevation 4.6 NAVD of 88, approximately 1,700 square feet of fill from an area of tidal wetlands located along the northwestern property line. And 4, immediately seed, hay, all areas of removed fill to stabilize the area of tidal wetlands and adjacent side slopes. Based upon the information provided to the department, hereby approves the restoration plan entitled Remediation CAM Soil Erosion Control Plan Sheet CAM 1, prepared by Harkin Engineering's LLC, dated September 3rd, 2019, with the following conditions. Prior to the commencement of work, proper sedimentation and erosion control measures must be established and maintained until the property is stabilized and there is no longer any threat of erosion. 2, all work must be completed no later than January 1st, 2020, unless otherwise authorized by the commissioner in writing. 3, all work shall be completed at low water. 4, at no time the property owner allow heavy equipment to be staged or access any areas located waterward of the coastal jurisdiction line or within tidal wetlands. All heavy equipment must be staged landward of these locations. 5, the property owner shall, for a period of no less than 2 years, submit a monitoring report prepared by a qualified consultant on or before September 30th of the following year for the Commissioner's review and comment detailing the status of the restoration area. Such monitoring report shall contain a minimum of the following information. 1, visual description of the restoration area, which identifies the health and vigor of the tidal wetlands. 2, description of the shoreline side slopes and their condition stability. 3, description of the restoration area identifying the species of plants growing. 4, description of any invasive plant species and recommendations to remove them. And 5, photographs of the shoreline areas of concern. 6, all fill material removed from the tidal wetlands must be disposed of at an approved upland disposal location or on-site landward of the 25-foot coastal resource setback shown up on the above approved reference plan. And 7, within 21 days of the completion of work, the property owner shall submit site photographs which show pre-work construction work and post-work site conditions. Should you have any questions in this matter, please do not hesitate to contact Kevin Zowie of my staff at 860-424-3626. Signed, Brian Thompson, Acting Bureau Chief of Land and Water Resources.
Kevin McGee, I see there's a note here from you. Could you chirp in?
Sure. Special permit coastal site plan review, 73 Meadow Street. The applicant is applying for a coastal area management review to satisfy the conditions of the Connecticut Department of Energy Environmental Protection Order dated September 23, 2019, which requires removal of approximately 1,720 square feet of fill down to elevation 4.6 and AVD of 88. The filling of the property started sometime after July 3, 2013, Planning and Zoning Commission approval to elevate the house. The site plan prepared by Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates dated July 1st, 2013 showed grading not to extend beyond 15 feet from the existing house. The mitigation plan proposed to satisfy the filling of tidal wetlands shows a sideline view lane of 20 feet wide. Section 273-91J2 of the zoning code requires that the end of a street or right-of-ways that the end of the waterfront that ends at a waterfront, a straight line, uninterrupted view lane of the coastal resources shall be reserved whose width is at least 75% of the existing street or right-of-way. As part of the requirements of the Planning and Zoning Commission cease and desist order issued on October 2nd, 2018 for additional work conducted on the property above the coastal jurisdiction line, the applicant's plan should provide this required view lane. In order to make sure the coastal resources are protected, I recommend the following condition of approval. The Town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer should be notified and inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any demolition or site construction. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fence or hay bales. Soil erosion and sedimentation control measures be maintained until vegetation is established or suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. 2, a pre-construction meeting be held with the design engineer, environmental planner, and the inland wetlands officer and the site contractor.
Yes, and the view lane is shown on our plan, just for the record.
All right then. Any clarifying questions? So I guess my question for you is if there are other things that need to happen beyond this approval, that's a separate issue.
There is an outstanding cease and desist order that was issued in October of 2018, and there are provisions in the statutes to proceed accordingly if there's non-compliance with that order.
As the zoning enforcement officer, we'll leave it up to you then.
Thank you.
That's passing the buck pretty good, wasn't it? Are there any clarifying questions from the audience? Would anyone like to speak in favor or against this application? Would someone like to make a motion to close?
I'll make the motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move to the, let's see if we can, thank you.
Revised agenda.
Let's go to the approved revised agenda. Let's go straight, see if we can get a couple of these things taken care of.
Part of this is a special permit, do we need to
About the 2 days.
I think we do have to either vote for or against that.
Waive the second public hearing.
We would need to, but I would,
Yeah, on the,
we can do that, we can discuss that when that one pops up.
now.
Okay. Given the timelines associated with this remediation, would someone like to make a motion to waive the second public hearing?
I'll make the motion to waive the second public hearing due to,
Discussion?
well, just due to the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's not hold them up.
part of me wants to like go to a second public hearing to see if there's some progress on other issues, but that's, again, that's Aaron's in Aaron's court right now. So,
It sounds like they would have to do the work regardless of
yeah, I
what
know,
our
so
vote is
I
this
would
evening,
rather
so-
have someone do it compliant than non-compliant. So I'll call the vote. All in favor of waiving the second public hearing? Anyone abstain or against? Okay, unanimous. Bigliotti Construction, do we have a motion?
I have a motion. No, we don't.
We don't.
That's continued.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to continue that to the, the Bigliotti, is that right?
Close the public hearing,
Close
so
it?
we're good on.
So we're closed, we don't have to deliberate.
Deliberate.
At the next
We'll
meeting.
reopen at the next.
You don't have to open
we
the
won't
hearing
reopen.
yet, but you can deliberate
Okay, we'll deliberate at the next public hearing.
sometime. Near-
Good for it, go for it. Petrillo's?
Petrillo, proposed motion.
Go for it, Rich.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal site plan application for Richard and Eileen Petrillo, 68 Trolley Road, map 8, lot 63, for a new single-family residence as shown on an application dated 9/5/2019. Proposed subsurface sewage disposal repair and coastal site plan dated November 30th, 2015, revised to October 1st of 2019, prepared by Waldo and Associates. Architectural plans, Petrillo Residence, dated 8/3/19, revised to and prepared by Philippe Campus Architect LLC. The application is approved based upon findings that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal area management policies of the state of Connecticut.
There's conditions from both Dennis and Kevin.
Okay, we'll reference those.
Do you want to just reference the conditions from Dennis? Okay.
And Kevin.
And
Someone like
Kevin-
to,
Kevin's condition also.
someone like to make a second on that?
Second.
Discussion.
Actually, as far as it meeting all the surface and boxes, it checks.
They're taking it from a non-compliant to a compliant location?
More compliant.
No, it's fully
Yeah,
compliant.
more fully compliant.
Yeah. So I'm comfortable with it.
Both Dennis and Kevin's conditions.
I think we read them in during
We did.
the public hearing, so we'll just say, with the conditions as
Reference.
referenced by Kevin and Dennis. Would be great. So I'll call a vote. All in favor of approving the application for Richard and Eileen Petrillo? Anyone abstain? Against? Motion carries. Benton's Knoll LLC, we have a motion?
Actually, you didn't vote to waive the second public hearing.
We didn't vote to waive the second public
Was
hearing.
that the second
So,
public hearing?
as a procedural matter,
Yeah.
I'd like to propose that we make a motion to waive the second public hearing for Benton's Knoll.
Second.
Discussion. I mean, do we think anything more is
No,
going to...
based on what the application is for, we're pretty much what it is. It is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it really is just for the septic.
Yeah.
And the addition of the bedrooms.
I recognize that, and I think, that what's before us with the change to the septic design code and the number of bedrooms and to expedite the finishing of this project, I think that's all, reasonable. But I think we have to be sympathetic to the members of the public. They came here to speak about some of their concerns regarding the site, its violation of sort of permitted working hours, as well as some concerns about stormwater runoff. I think, as a former New Yorker, I'm very sympathetic to construction happening your entire lifetime in your property. So I think if we can possibly make some proposal that perhaps digital photography could be submitted to Aaron to help with sort of documenting violations. It was also proposed during our discussions that perhaps Aaron go and visit the site to look at the condition of the silt fencing. I'd like to sort of put that forward.
We can make those recommendations. I'm not sure we can make them as conditions of our, and I think as part of the discussion process, we talked about Janice going out to take a peek at the potential runoff issues and just to maybe update us on that at a future date.
Request that staff contact the town attorney as far as proper protocol suggestions in
terms of the process, in terms of-
enforcing that
Right.
condition, and what would be
It sounds like
acceptable?
the town council should probably be involved to figure out how to properly demonstrate to the zoning enforcement officer when violations happen.
Okay, that's fine with me. It's not really a condition, but it's...
No, it's just...
So we have a motion to waive the second public hearing.
So I know it's not our time, but Kevin...
I'm sorry, the public hearing is actually closed.
So even though Kevin introduced some things, those don't matter about the one there and the landscaping?
Those are part of the conditions that would be read in. So, we've already got a motion and a second to waive the public hearing. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Against? Abstain? We good? Okay. We'll waive the second public hearing on Benton's Knoll. Is there a proposed motion on
There is.
Benton's Knoll?
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a revision to the PRD special permit for Benton's Knoll LLC, 215 Colonial Road, Old Sachem's Head Road, map 8, lot 24, to increase the septic system bedroom limitation from 33 to 40 bedrooms. Well, actually by 7 bedrooms. The special permit revision is approved with the following conditions. I would reference the Dennis Johnson letter about everything related to the septic system in compliance, and Kevin's about everything to do.
Erosion control.
Erosion control, landscaping around the
And I would make
system.
specific reference that trees and shrubs have been shown on the landscape plan but have not been planted yet. These landscape items should be planted within 1 year of the special permit modification to ensure the trees and shrubs are maintained while development is being built out. That's a specific condition of this. I'm
I
sorry?
think that should say shall be planted, rather
Shall
than
be.
suggesting that as a should.
Landscape items shall be planted within 1 year of the special permit modification to ensure that trees and shrubs are maintained while the development is being built out. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
So the request to the staff, or to the town's attorney would be a condition, or?
No, that's that's the whole enforcement. There was questions from the public earlier about what's the process for enforcing violations, and that's part of the answer, is that if, there's a question of proving violations, and we're referring people to the town council to what's the proper way to do that.
That's something we'll have, the zoning officer will consult with the town council about that. The neighbors are not enabled to consult with our legal counsel, but we can.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Ditto for staff referencing town engineer to take a look.
Sure.
Not as a condition.
Well, I'm,
Fact finding.
It's just, we agree to say that to the staff, and the staff agrees to take that action.
That's, right, you're the bosses.
It's on the
We
public
try to-
record now.
We try to do what you ask us to do.
Would be
Thank
good.
you.
Well, on a personal note, I hope that the adding of the bedrooms makes the property more marketable and it can move it quickly toward completion. I think everyone around would be better served by that. So, and I would ask the applicant to be respectful of the neighbors and to be compliant with the conditions of the special permit in terms of work hours. That being said, we have a motion, we have a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Anyone abstain? Anyone object? Unanimous. Okay. Saunders, 73 Meadow Street. Do we have a motion?
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit and coastal site plan for remediation of approximately 720 square feet of tidal wetlands due to an unauthorized filling for John Saunders, 73 Meadow Street, map 32, lot 85, as shown on remediation CAM soil erosion control plan, sheet CAM 1, prepared by Harkin Engineering LLC, dated September 3rd, 2019. The application is approved with the following conditions: that all conditions noted in the September 23rd, 2019 letter to John Saunders from Brian Thompson, Acting Bureau Chief, Land and Water Resource Division, Bureau of Water Protection and Land Use and Refuge be followed. The application is approved based on a finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal area management policies of the state of Connecticut. The special permit is effective on October 11, 2019, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Someone like to second that? Discussion? Comments? Concerns? I mean,
Kevin,
Aaron
conditions.
inspects it also?
I think they're the same conditions that the stage has, but.
Yes.
Pre-construction.
Sedimentation and removal.
Right.
Yeah,
We should
Pre-construction
have
and
a
air
meeting.
Yeah.
That's
and
all.
we'll
It
add
can
the
be
conditions
inspected.
per the zoning enforcement officer,
As noted by Deep's memo.
as well as D. Any further discussion? I mean, it's going to get done. Let's have it done.
Do we need to put a stipulation about the fill going off-site? I know that he said that it was on the plan already.
It's
on the plan, and I mean, part of the application.
You can do it too if you want, that way it's. The DEP already brought it in.
Also, the DP actually said that it could remain on site.
No, it said you had to remove it.
No.
No, it said that
Right.
it could
The
stay on
plan
site as long
itself-
as it was landward.
The plan itself says that any remove fill other than establishing the
The grade.
2-to-1 slope be removed off-site as it is.
Location. Just off-site.
Not just off-site, not out in Meadow Street.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right. Subdivision, Bennett Hall trustee, 135 Old Quarry, Narrow Island, map 6, lot 6B, zone R5, 2-lot subdivision table till 10/16/19. Can someone get a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Walmart, site plan. We get this every other year. 900 Boston Post Road, map 47, lot 22B, zone SC, site plan revision to allow for the placement of 8 storage containers from October 1 till January 31 for 2019 and 20. We'd like to receive and take action. Hi.
Good evening. My name's Josh Robertson. I'm store manager at 900 Boston Post Road. Just like what you said, we're looking just for a 2-year extension for 2019, 2020 for up to 8 storage trailers. Would be 4 across the back and the 4 on the side like we've done in the previous years. That's...
We've approved this 4 on the side of where?
Up against the
I know where
building.
Walmart is.
Right up against the building.
Up against the building.
Correct.
Not out in the parking
No,
lot.
no.
I'll attest
In
to
other
that.
words, we won't remove the tractor and leave the rest of it out onto the parking lot.
No.
On the right side as you're looking at Walmart.
No.
Okay, as long as that stipulation's in there. Where's the other 4 going?
Across the back, like we have...
I realize there's 4 going across the back. Where are the other 4 going? Up against the wall where?
4 across the back, and then 4 up against the side of the building.
West side.
Yeah,
The right-hand side if you're looking.
I know.
Well, you asked, so I'm just clarifying.
I know, I've seen them in the middle of the lot in the past. On the right-hand side, I saw where the tractor was removed, and they were sitting there on the side in those months.
So I'm going to just float an idea that maybe instead of in 2021, we come for a 2-year extension, that maybe we can potentially, because we've been watching this now for a number of years, and it doesn't seem to be that egregious, that maybe you think about a site plan revision, so you don't have to come back every other year.
100% for that.
Okay, well, that was just a thought, you know, I mean.
I think Walmart was... There isn't, right now, there's a maximum store size limitation in that zone for retail stores. If we were to modify that, I'm sure Walmart would be more than willing to add on to the building.
The store, I'm talking
Oh,
about
okay.
allowing for this
Yeah.
period of time, the storage of these containers. So we're not really changing what we've done.
Yes,
We're
I
just trying to
Right.
make this a more efficient process.
Yeah, we have, since I've been there, because it used to be yearly, and I think probably I've been at this location now myself for about 5 years. So I think we changed it to 2 years, so I'd be willing to look at that as well.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, having run businesses next door to Scott,
We enjoy the distinction
It-
of
it-
having
it's
small
not an
Walmart
issue.
in the country or something like that. Is that true?
What was that?
I mean, I think Walmart's building small stores now, but it used to be the case that Guilford was the smallest Walmart in the country.
We still kind of, we're one of the small.
The most efficient.
Proud of it.
Okay.
liter in square foot.
Any other,
Liter in sales per square foot.
any other questions?
I'd make a motion, voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approved the request of Walmart for temporary placement of 8 storage containers from October 1st until January 31st for 2019 and 2020, as shown on application dated 9/9/18.
Second.
Discussion? I mean, I guess the only thing is, we didn't really see the application, so we didn't see a map as to where everything are
There
going.
is a map on
Okay.
Yeah, on the last page of the,
I think I have a pretty good sense, but. Yep. Thanks.
Just a quick aside, well, we'll call the vote on this and then just
All
a
right.
question on this.
So we're, discussion. What do you like to discuss?
Other retailers in the town, are they allowed to bring in storage trailers? In the past, I think I saw one behind one of the drugstores.
Well, they have to go through the same process.
And
Walmart.
I've been on this, and
Here.
these are the only folks coming before us.
So if we have a zoning violation, you know what to do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Aaron.
You know who to talk to.
Okay.
And I
So-
know this is the time that fire departments like to go in back rooms and
Can I see that, where does it show them now? They're here in the back.
Yeah, I know
And then
that.
here on the side. Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Call the vote. All in favor? Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, let's keep going. Post Road LLC, 640 Boston Post Road, map 48, lot 25, zone TS, site plan modification to allow for updates to existing building and revisions and parking to entrance. Extension granted to 10/16/19. Someone like to make a motion?
so moved.
Seconded by Alan. All in favor? Thank you. Town of Guilford, Long Hill Park, map 85, lot 1, zone R5, site plan modification to allow second floor of storage barn to be used as a meeting room. And Rick would like us to receive and take action on this.
We lost our audience. Nobody wanted to
Oh,
hear.
you're lucky.
So the barn at Long Hill Park was built, I think, around 2000, early 2000s, by youth football. And this is Rance Hillier, who's the president of youth football. So if you have any questions about what they...
No big presentation and drawings and all that stuff. No X's and O's?
No. So the barn, they've been using it for meeting space for many, many, many years upstairs, the whole second floor. It's in compliance to codes according to the building department. They had to bring it to code years ago when they did it. But evidently, it was approved by planning and zoning as a storage building, not for meetings. And so we were told that we should have it officially approved for that use, because it's been for years. Parks and Recreation Commission officially approved that at the meeting in September, allowing them to, it's a building in a town park. Commission has no problem with them using that building for meetings. Rance, I think you have coaches' meetings there, or you show films with the kids up there after practice?
Yes, it's completely finished, screening and film and all that. It's an educational tool for all the kids. And then we do host a monthly board meeting, which is seasonal from basically March through November.
Is it not heated? Is it heated?
No.
No. No, it's not heated.
And we'll bring a sweater.
So they don't go in the winter time up there. It's just pretty much, yeah, March through November. Yeah.
So you're aware, I reached out to the fire marshal's office, as Rick had implied that the fire marshal had been out and inspected the site, and they have confirmed that, and it's in your, their most recent inspection report is in your file. That was done on June 12th of this year. And that all of the boxes were checked for the meeting space. There's a few photos in there as well that they meet the fire code for a mixed-use assembly over a general sports storage building.
Anything else we need to know? Is it, I mean, how many, we have sufficient, obviously, the big
Right,
park,
this
we have
stemmed
sufficient
as a
parking.
result from a complaint. A neighbor had various complaints, and town engineer, our health director, Rick, and I met with the first selectman to break down all of the items that were included in the complaint, and this one was specifically addressed. So we thought it was the most appropriate that they come for a site plan modification so that the commission approves the use of the building.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions?
Housekeeping.
Yeah, well, it's nice to bring them into compliance. So would someone like to propose a motion?
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a site plan revision for the town of Guilford Long Hill Park, map 85, lot 1, to allow the second floor of the existing storage barn to be used as a meeting room, as shown on an application dated September 11, 2019. This application is approved with the following conditions. This application is approved based upon a finding that conforms with the zoning code.
Second. Discussion. Quick question. Do we have a copy of the letter or inspection from the fire marshal clearing everything?
That's in your, behind.
Oh, that's this?
Yep.
I don't see a lot of these.
The next page, after the table, there's a little paragraph on the back side of that that discusses it, and they also have photos of
No
the
deficiencies,
meeting
all
space.
passes. That's pretty good.
So then
Pass,
there's a
fail,
little
that'd be good.
description there.
A+.
All right, so we have a motion, second. Doesn't appear to be a lot of discussion. You have something to say? Nope. And you're just voting early?
Yeah, I'm voting early.
All in favor?
Go home.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Robert Mangino, owner PCD, Boston Post Road, map 78, lot 13, zone TS2, site plan modification to allow for sale of landscaping materials, including tractors and tools. We'll receive that. Coastal site plan shown Portly, 65 Satcham's Head Road, map 21, lot 22, zone R5, coastal site plan application to remove existing single-family dwelling and associated utilities and construct new single-family dwelling, apparent driveway, utilities, subsurface storage. Public hearing opened and continued to the 16th? We don't? Very good.
Items that are, unless it's a receipt or setting a public hearing date, which you technically
Which
don't have to
technically I
vote
have
to
to do on the
receipt
next one?
anything. But these are just to keep you apprised
Okay.
of what is coming up.
So Bennett Hall's coming up
We
on the
already did
16th?
those things.
Okay.
You've taken all of these actions already at previous meetings. It's just so you know what's coming up and what's pending before you,
Okay.
rather than having something disappear off the agenda and then just show up one night. We've tried to amend the agenda so at least you
Well-
can keep an idea of what.
For
what's
those
before.
watching at home,
Signify what needs to be acted on.
We just saved some time.
That's why we're
right, so I'm
here.
just going to skip and just list them quick. I'm going to go Bennett Hall. The Bennett Hall application is set, the public hearing is set for 10/16/19. Michelle Ladano, public hearing set for 10/16/19. Daniel Earl, there are two, both set for 11/6/19. And then there's a mandatory referral from the Board of Selectmen that has been tabled to the 16th with no further business to conduct. Would someone
One of them aware of the interviews that Glenn Chowder is conducting.
Has he started that yet?
No, but
Tomorrow, Friday.
we're scheduling them. So I thought
I thought someone
He
was
may
gonna
not
let
have
us
reached
know.
out to
You could
everybody
shoot an
yet.
email to that effect to.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure that you all know.
He's meeting with staff members, employees from various departments on Friday. And then he has, as he had said, his power users, of people who frequently use, he will be having open hours for them to come in and discuss with him.
But they have not been contacted yet.
Yes, they
Oh, they
have.
haven't been?
I think
Okay.
so. yeah.
Yes, they
If you could
have.
just keep us in the loop on that, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether that's just, Lisa, via email or whatever.
We have a master schedule,
What-
right? Of when
Right,
the
there's
meetings are?
3 meeting dates with these users, these people, and then there's an open general members of the public. He also has the contact information from various appropriate commissions who may
Yeah, we
use.
just like
it.
to know the dates.
If you could, yeah, I mean, I know it's
Are we
impressive,
gonna
but if you could
take
just,
a look at the process for violations?
Everything, anything in
The
the zoning code.
regulation in there?
Some of that.
Right, I think some of that could be in conforming conditions on specific approvals to avoid conditions that are difficult to enforce.
with no further business, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? I don't see that, where's that? Minutes?
9:18.
9:18 regular meeting minutes, I had a chance to review, has anyone else?
I did too. They proved substantially correct.
Very good, someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Someone want to second that? All in favor? Thank you very much. We get a second on that?
Absolutely.
All in favor? Thank you very much.